Today, we are bringing to you the most viewed cases on our channel. If you're already familiar with this case, feel free to move on to the next one.
911 emergency operator 609.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it's taking the cops so long to get here.
Can you provide me the address so I can look it
Yeah,
up?
2086 Mound Street.
Has something changed since you originally called?
What now? What?
Has anything changed since you originally called?
Yes, he's not answering. Like, I'm outside her fucking window yelling and nobody's answering. You guys need to get a cop here, quick.
Michael Herman, a roommate of the esteemed Dr. Amie Harwick, finds himself at the center of a mysterious and panicked situation. The urgency in his voice raises questions. Why the anger? Why the panic? As law enforcement arrives, they're met with a distressed Michael outside the house.
Hold on. Okay, so you have access to here?
No.
Is there anybody else inside the house?
My roommate.
Just your roommate by yourself?
Yes. Dude, I heard screaming. I don't know if that guy had a gun or a knife. I came running I couldn't find my phone or
So is there somebody else inside?
Yes. So I think there's
Okay, sir, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Calm down. Calm down. Other than your roommate, is there anybody else inside the house?
I don't know.
So you didn't see anyone?
No, I just heard her screaming.
Have you called?
I just got thrown to the ground. I've been calling for her through his windows. Nobody's answering. Nothing. I couldn't find. I'm in the middle of sleep. I don't know how many people are in there. I don't know if he's got a weapon or what. I'm trying to knock on neighbors' doors. Nobody's answering. I don't have a phone. He was walking by. And I had.
Take some deep breaths for me, all right? Relax.
We don't have a lot of time.
Well, sir, so how are we supposed to gain entry into this place?
I guess hop the fence with me. We'll go around back. The back door's open. Let's go.
So where's your key at?
Inside, downstairs. The back door's open.
So you came out and came up this way?
Yes.
As we delve into the narrative, we uncover the facets of Dr. Amie Harwick's remarkable life. Let's rewind to where it all began. The tragic case of Dr. Amie Harwick. Residing in the Hollywood Hills of Los Angeles is a dream for many, and only a fortunate few get to turn it into reality. Amie Harwick was one of those lucky individuals.
This is Dr. Amie Harwick, licensed marriage and family therapist.
Being a renowned therapist based in West Hollywood, specializing in family and sex counseling, she was no stranger to the limelight.
Welcome back to Good Morning La La. And if you're looking to manifest your mojo this week, you might want to speak to this woman, Dr. Amie Harwick.
She was regularly featured on podcasts, TV shows, and had a YouTube channel to share insights into her work.
Hi, this is Dr. Amie Harwick, and today this video is going to be all about what is a sex therapist. I get this question all the time. People don't know what I do, or they have all these misconceptions about what sex therapy is. So right now I'm going to break it down and tell you what it is I do and what it is a sex therapist does.
Yet, as we know, fame doesn't always bring only good things. It often carries its own dark secrets.
When I heard that she got murdered, right away I thought, oh, it's got to be that guy.
My best friend is terrified of one person.
The celebrity persona that graced her with red carpet appearances also brought doom to her life, where someone was watching her every move, patiently biding his time. Everything came crashing down on Valentine's Day night of 2020 when 38-year-old Amie Harwick was found mortally wounded after falling from the balcony of her third-floor bedroom.
Asked her, I was like, please come to the after party with me. And of course, maybe if she came with me, it would have changed the trajectory of events.
She passed away in the hospital a few hours later, leaving behind a chilling tale and the face of her assailant captured on her Ring camera. But who was this man? And what drove him to commit such a heinous act? Amie Nicole Harwick came into the world on May 20th, 1981, in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. We don't have much information about her biological parents, but Amie found her forever home when she was adopted by Tom Harwick and Penny Kaufman Harwick. Growing up with her adoptive brother Chris in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, Amie wrapped up her school days by graduating with the class of 1999 from North Penn High School. In her youth, Amie found love with a musician from a local band, leading to an early marriage. By 2001, she'd relocated to Los Angeles, a city synonymous with dreams. While her marriage didn't withstand the test of time, Amie chose to make Los Angeles her home. Just like many newcomers in LA, Amie had big dreams. But she wasn't just reaching for the stars. She poured her heart into everything she tried, living life to the fullest. She had a clear sense of where she was going. Driven by her career aspirations, Amie pursued further education. She successfully completed her undergraduate studies at California Polytechnic State University. Later, she earned a Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology from Pepperdine University and a Doctorate of Human Sexuality from the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. Amie went on to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. Beyond her credentials, Amie's expertise and insights gained recognition, leading to frequent invitations as a guest on popular podcasts and TV shows. She became a sought-after advisor on matters of relationships and intimacy.
So as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I see all kinds of different things. So I just don't talk about sex all day, which some people think I do. but people either come to me because there's a sexuality-related thing or because anxiety, depression, change of life stuff, breakups, moves, things like that.
To share her knowledge more widely, Amie also created content on her own YouTube channel, providing valuable discussions on her professional work. Amie dedicated a significant portion of her work to addressing a range of physical and psychological disorders. Her proficiency extended to traumas associated with sexual exploitation, matters concerning sexual identity, and bipolar disorder, a topic often overlooked in our society. In recognition of her expertise and commitment, in 2012, the esteemed therapist Moshumi Goes gladly extended an internship opportunity to Amie, setting the foundation for her successful career.
Hi, I'm Mo.
And I'm Dr. Amie Harwick.
And today we're having
the Sex Talk.
I was excited to have someone like Amie in the practice. She was passionate about destigmatizing the way we see sexuality. She really wanted to normalize it.
In a short span of time, Amie established her private practice in West Hollywood, where she made a name for herself, specializing in family and sex counseling with a clientele that included celebrities. Her research laid the groundwork for her book, The New Sex Bible for Women, published in 2014, emphasizing sexual self-awareness and intimacy. Excerpts from her book found their way onto the pages of renowned magazines worldwide, such as Playboy and Elite Daily. Amie achieved remarkable feats that many can only aspire to, but her younger years were not without challenges.
In high school, I would say I was a little bit awkward. I was definitely pretty alternative. I listened to rock and roll and heavy metal. In school, I would wear ripped up fishnets with combat boots, a leopard print skirt, and probably a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt.
As she matured, embodying the spirit of typical Los Angeles transformation, Amie mastered the art of self-reinvention. Beyond her academic pursuits, Amie harbored a multitude of creative interests and talents. She served as a model for Stop Sharing Clothing and Coffin Case, even participating in a photo shoot for Playboy. Amie funded her master's degree and doctorate by engaging in various jobs, including bartending, go-go dancing, and fire eating.
At the time, I was still, I think I was finishing graduate school. So I was still working. I worked as a performer before. I was a professional dancer. I ate fire. I worked at circuses. I've done...
What?
Yeah, I've even been a clown. Maybe twice I've been a clown. So I did all these random LA jobs. This is actually pretty common in LA though. I bartended. I was a sober bartender just to get through school at the time. And so a lot of my friends were people also living this lifestyle, whether they were going to school and doing all these side jobs or they were just artists.
In addition to modeling, she worked as a personal trainer and released a workout DVD titled Fit to Rock.
Hey, this is Amy Nicole, and welcome to my Fit to Rock workout video.
Despite her numerous accomplishments, Amie remained down to earth and had a close connection with her family.
Amie was just like any other, teenage girl. She liked hanging out with friends, going to parties, and her and I had, I would call it, a pretty normal brother and sister relationship. We had our ups and downs, brothers and sisters fight.
Her favorite visit home every year was the annual cookie baking day when she'd reunite with all of her relatives. These gatherings always included cheesesteaks, pork rolls, and Lebanon bologna. Those who knew her would describe her as funny, smart, bubbly, kind-hearted, fierce, well-spoken, independent, basically the life of a party. Even in the hardest times of her life, she was always enthusiastic.
She was one of my best friends. She was somebody that I went to a lot when I was confused or hurt or wanted advice.
She had a magic that few people possess. She was a superstar.
She's one of the most finest people I've ever known in my life. She's just really intelligent and wonderful to talk to and to be around and all of that.
Amie was a rare gem in Hollywood, a genuinely empathetic and caring person. According to her friends, her natural ability to connect with people seamlessly transitioned into her therapy work, making her an effective therapist. She embodied beauty with brains. When not immersed in her own projects and career, Amie dedicated herself to helping other women achieve their ambitions. She initiated and managed an online networking group called Foxy Feminists, facilitating connections among women in Los Angeles for job opportunities, inspiration, and support. Amie consistently advocated for women and served as a positive force for change and improvement in the lives of everyone who crossed her path.
Be positive, be fun to be around, be a happy person, be healthy. All of these things that make you an attractive mate will make you feel more confident about yourself. And the more confident you feel, the less fear you're going to feel.
Furthermore, her commitment towards positivity extended beyond her immediate circles. She was passionate about supporting marginalized groups in society. Amie collaborated with Pineapple Support, an organization of sex work positive mental health professionals founded in late 2017 in the wake of a series of adult industry workers taking their own lives.
I work with sex workers, or people that maybe were previously sex workers. And in this town, the adult industry is huge. So the people that do or have done some type of work in that industry, it's a very big group of people.
There's the social kind of, you said isolation.
If you're a webcam performer, you're in your room or wherever you want to have your laptop, and you're on camera with people that are then tipping you through a tipping mechanism. So then if you know
it's
you
not
could...
real human contact.
Not real human contact, and also it's like a chat room. So you'll have just anybody go on there and they call them names, derogatory terms. So you're just in your bedroom all day and these guys are spitting out, or people, who knows, male or female.
Amie was truly one of a kind when it came to her interests and hobbies. Her quirky and fun-loving personality reflected not only her unique tastes, but also in her newfound passion for photography. Beyond showcasing her distinct beauty in front of the camera, evident in all her photos and videos, she had a knack for capturing the individuality of others and was rapidly becoming an inspirational photographer. Along with her creative quests, Amie had a fascination with true crime, a deep love of horror movies, and a collection of unique taxidermy pieces. Her attraction to the macabre extended to a peculiar interest in true crime memorabilia, such as bras owned by Charles Manson family murder victim Sharon Tate, which she once acquired at an auction. Amie also found joy in visiting the preserved organs and jars at Philadelphia's Mutter Museum, gleefully taking her friends on a trip to explore. It reflected a certain excitement for all things dark and unconventional. According to Dr. Hernando Chavez, a sex therapist and Harwick's longtime friend, this fascination with darkness made her feel alive and happy. Little did Amie know that her own story would become forever entwined with darkness as part of a true crime tale. During her time in LA, Amie had been in relationships with several musicians and celebrities. However, her most notable and publicized romance was with Drew Carey, the acclaimed comedian and host of the CBS game show The Price is Right. Their paths crossed in the summer of 2017 at a party thanks to their mutual friend, Full House producer Jeff Franklin. Carey was absolutely smitten by Amie's personality.
Really beautiful. Like, she was smart. She had a PhD, master's degree. She cared so much about helping people. That was her life's purpose.
Amie, in contrast to her previous relationships with seemingly bad boys, found Carey to be genuinely a nice guy.
Have you ever had that rush of excitement when you meet somebody new? That feeling of puppy love, the honeymoon phase, infatuation? Your brain is covered in chemicals that make you think different things. It's so exciting.
Despite the significant 23-year age difference between them, their relationship progressed quickly and became quite serious. The couple became engaged in January 2018, and Amie even made a guest appearance on the Valentine's Day edition of The Price is Right in 2018, where Carey introduced her as his fiancée to millions of TV viewers.
Price is Right. Here's your host, Drew Carey.
I'd like to introduce you to my brand new lovely fiancée, Amie. How you doing, Amie?
Unfortunately, the relationship was not meant to last, and in the same year, the engagement was called off.
This was this great love, and what happened?
Well, we had some problems. Finally just had to call it a day.
While friends chose not to delve into the specifics of the breakup, citing different communication styles as the reason, it was evident that both individuals were deeply affected by the separation.
Was she sad when the relationship ended with Drew Carey?
Yeah. So it didn't work out, but they were still friends. They were still amicable.
Nevertheless, life moved forward. Amie persisted in her work and spent her free time with friends. Although Amie and Carey remained amicable after their breakup, they had fallen out of touch. However, on the night before Valentine's Day in 2020, Carey received a text from Amie expressing a desire to talk. They agreed to meet after the Valentine's Day holiday weekend, with Carey looking forward to the opportunity to reconnect with Amie despite being in another relationship by then. They hoped to build a new future as friends. Little did the former couple know that this meeting would never take place, and they would never get the chance to talk again. Amie's Valentine's Day began peacefully with a sunrise hike with her friend Cleopatra Slough at her luxurious Hollywood Hills home.
So I got to her house. She invited me in because she still hadn't gotten ready yet. We went up to her bedroom, which was very beautiful. It had this nice balcony, all this natural light, and she was frantically getting ready. And at the last minute, she grabbed this little red cardigan sweater and said, "It's Valentine's Day. I'm just going to throw this on."
Acting as a local tour guide, Amie led the way through the winding Hollywood Hills streets.
She was pointing out all these different landmarks she liked, telling me different history about the neighborhood.
The duo then stopped for breakfast at the Beechwood Cafe, where Amie shared her happiness with her life, pride in her accomplishments, and excitement about future plans.
She seemed worried about anything that day?
No.
Did she talk about what her plans were that night?
Yes, they were all going to a burlesque show. And she was really excited to get dressed up and go to that.
At approximately 7:30 p.m. on Valentine's Day, Amie and a group of friends arrived at the Globe Theatre. Another friend, burlesque impresario Miss Tosh, had organized a show featuring performers celebrating the holiday, whether they were single or in a romantic relationship. Amie, adorned in a pink velvet dress, a leather jacket, a white purse, thigh-high black boots, and a rosary-beaded necklace with a cross, participated in the festivities that night. Little did they know that one of these items, the necklace, would later become a crucial piece of evidence.
They brought a little Kodak camera and taking all these film photos together. And I could see them even when I was on stage, just like cheering and standing. They were having the best time.
When Amie and her friends were capturing moments and enjoying the burlesque performances, Amie's roommate, Michael Herman, who was sleeping on the ground floor of Amie's home, was startled by what he thought was the sound of a plate shattering on the floor above him. Assuming it was Amie, he went back to sleep, unaware of how this seemingly insignificant noise would profoundly change the trajectory of his friend's life. Amie met up with Miss Tosh in the lobby around 9 p.m. and was invited to the after-party. However, Amie, who generally avoided alcohol, politely declined the offer.
It's like, no, I'm just going to have tea with my friends. And that was my last moment with her, was just, I love you. I'll see you again soon.
Instead of attending the burlesque after-party, Amie and her friends went to the Nomad for tea and stayed there until 12:18 a.m. Around 1 a.m., Amie arrived home and texted her friend Sarah Rollins, asking for pictures from the Nomad. The time of the text was 1:02 a.m. She also responded to her best friend, Robert Koshland, who had earlier sent her a picture of a restaurant regarding an upcoming UK trip. Moments later, she went up the stairs to her third-floor bedroom, perhaps getting ready to rest, unaware that danger lurked in her own home. Minutes later, Amie's roommate, Michael Herman, was jolted out of sleep by blood-curdling screams. The screams appeared to be muffled, as if someone had placed a hand over her mouth, followed by sounds resembling bodies slamming to the floor. Unable to locate his phone, he initially shouted up the stairs in an attempt to scare off the intruder. Frantically, he ran outside to seek help. However, he found himself trapped inside the courtyard and had to scale a tall metal fence, resulting in cuts. Despite the injuries, he managed to make it to a neighbor's house, repeatedly knocking on the door, but received no response. He sprinted across the street to another neighbor, but again, no one answered the door. Spotting someone walking up the street with a phone, Herman, at 1:14 a.m., finally made a call to the police for help.
Somebody just attacked my roommate. We're at 2806 Town Street. I don't know. I just had to run out of the house because I couldn't find my phone. I couldn't find a weapon. I couldn't find anything. How was he assaulted? What happened? I don't know. I was downstairs. I heard screaming. Please get a cop here. Okay, now you have to get questions. Okay, they're very important. What exactly happened? You didn't know. What? What?
Are you ready to answer my questions, sir?
Are you? Yes, go ahead.
Did you see anything?
No.
Okay, so
I heard her screaming, and I heard her being...
All right, so I'm going to send out if somebody's screaming, okay? Since you didn't see anything. You don't know if she's being attacked, you're not sure.
Yes, I know she's being attacked. I heard her got thrown to the ground.
Okay, all right, so 2086 Mount Street. Is that a house or an apartment, sir?
It's a house.
Okay. And this is who's screaming inside?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and your name?
Michael Herman.
And what is your callback number, Michael?
I don't have my phone. This is somebody else's phone.
Okay, would it be okay to contact you back at this phone?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. And so you're also hearing somebody hitting her, is that correct?
Yes, I heard something like that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was yelling up there.
Okay, so I'm just going to send out if her screaming, okay, since we don't know what is going on?
Yes.
All right, and where are you going to be so you can direct
I'm right up front. I'm right up front.
Are you black, white, Hispanic, or Asian so they know who to look for?
What now?
Are you black, white, Hispanic, or Asian?
White.
Okay,
White.
and what color shirt will you have on?
White.
Okay. That way they can find you, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Michael.
Since the police were not yet on the scene, a few minutes later, Herman, still in distress, dialed 911 once again.
911 emergency operator 609.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it's taking the cops so long to get here.
Can you provide me the address so I can look it up?
2086 Mound Street.
0118.
It's absolutely incredible.
Has something changed since you originally called?
What now? What?
Has anything changed since you originally called?
Yes, she's not answering. Like I'm outside her fucking window yelling and nobody's answering. You guys need to get a cop here quick.
Sir, the officers are on the way. I'm asking if there's anything I can update them.
Officers reached the location at approximately 1:25 a.m. and found a disheveled Herman on the street.
She's thrown to the ground. I couldn't find my phone. I couldn't find anything.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so you have access to here? No. Is there anybody else inside the house?
My roommate.
Just your roommate by yourself?
Yes. You didn't check on her? Dude, I heard screaming. I don't know if that guy had a gun or a knife. I came running trying to... I couldn't find my phone or
So is there somebody else inside?
Yes. So I think there's...
Okay, sir, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Calm down. Calm down. Other than your roommate, is there anybody else inside the house?
I don't know. I don't know. So you didn't see anyone? No, I just heard her screaming.
Have you called?
I just got thrown to the ground. I've been calling for her through his windows. Nobody's answering. Nothing.
Hey, let's get an additional unit.
It's not building search.
Yeah, I know, but...
I mean, we can if you want.
Yeah,
but we're going to go in there.
Yeah, I know. 615, can I get an additional unit for some office?
I have my keys in there.
Is requesting additional unit 2086 Mount Street.
So you were essentially locked out. Yes. I mean, I can hop the fence, but I mean, my keys were left in the house. I was in the middle of sleep.
So why is this? Why can't we get in here?
Because it's locked. Because she came home and
listen, sir. You need to relax a little bit so that we can get all the information, okay?
Okay.
So how are we going to get? How are you planning on getting back in here?
I don't know. I guess hopping the fence and getting my key. I couldn't. I'm in the middle of sleep. I don't know how many people are in there. I don't know if he's got a weapon or what. I'm trying to knock on neighbors' doors. Nobody's answering. I don't have a phone. He was walking by. And I had to take some deep breaths from me, all right? Relax. You don't have a lot of time. I mean, you left all your stuff in there, but I was supposed to get in.
Well, sir, so how are we supposed to gain entry into this place?
I guess hop the fence with me. We'll go around back. The back door's open. Let's go.
So where's your key at?
Inside, downstairs. The back door's open.
So you came out and came up this way?
Yes.
Hey, partner, we're gonna have to jump it. We're trying to find a better place that we can jump it. How long ago did did you last hear from her? We're gonna have to go right here. Can you hold this? Dude, this is... Yeah, so we have a lot more gear than what you're wearing.
Although not captured in this footage, officers discovered Amie Harwick desperately clinging to life on the patio beneath the balcony outside her Hollywood Hills home. Law enforcement observed severe injuries and deep marks on her neck, indicating she'd been strangled before falling 20 feet from the balcony. Amie, still alive but barely breathing, was immediately transported to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center by paramedics. At 2:05 a.m., Sarah Rowlands texted Amie with photos of her on the green couch from Nomad, completely unaware that her friend was fighting for her life. Sadly, those images marked the last photos taken of Amie Harwick as she tragically passed away at 3:26 a.m. at the age of only 38. Inside her home, investigators found signs of a break-in and a violent struggle. Bloodstains were visible on a bedroom door, and a trail of the rosary beads she'd worn earlier that night led from her TV room through her bedroom and onto the balcony. It was on the balcony where they discovered a syringe filled with liquid. Considering Amie didn't smoke, drink, or do drugs, the syringe seemed out of place. Was it left by Amie's attacker? Who would be so desperate to break into Amie's home, strategically launching an attack on her? And most importantly, why? To answer these questions and unravel the mystery of this murder, investigators knew they had to turn to those close to her. As daylight emerged over Los Angeles on the morning after Valentine's Day in 2020, the tragic news of Amie Harwick's death spread like wildfire, leaving hearts shattered.
A well-known therapist was killed at her Hollywood Hills home.
I didn't believe it.
She's not there anymore.
When Robert Koshland noticed 2 missed calls from Michael Herman on the morning of February 15, 2020, he never imagined that he was about to receive the devastating news of his best friend's departure from this world. His nightmare came true as he also received calls from the LA police requesting him to go to the Hollywood station. The media was quick to report Amie's death, and the shocking news soon reached Drew Carey, who, like countless others, found himself grappling with disbelief. Sharing a Christmas photo of himself with Amie on Twitter, Carey expressed his emotions with a heartfelt caption, "I hope you're lucky enough to have someone in your life that loves as much as she did." During the investigation, the medical examiner determined her death to be a homicide, citing factors such as manual strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head and torso in the autopsy report. Additionally, lab tests on the syringe discovered in Amie's house revealed a lethal dose of nicotine, although it wasn't used on Amie. As Amie's loved ones mourned her loss, investigators were looking for clues. When questioned about who could be responsible for such a heinous act, all of Amie's friends had one name in mind.
When I heard that she got murdered, right away I thought, oh, it's got to be that guy.
My best friend is terrified of one person.
It's Gareth.
As a go-go dancing gig in early 2010, she met Gareth Pershouse, an IT specialist from California. Additionally, he worked as a photographer. Gareth also had an aspiration to be a comedian, although he wasn't very good at making people laugh.
One more time for Gareth, everybody. Come on.
Hello, everybody. All right, let me spin around this. There we go. Well, thank you very much. Anyway, so I have bad news for the entertainers over there. Okay. I have bad news for the entertainers over there. The best day of your career is going to be the days after you die.
Towering at 6 foot 4 inches, possessing a robust physique, and extruding a wholesome appearance, Gareth stood in contrast to the musician types Amie typically gravitated toward.
At the time, he was loud, charming, a little goofy, but he seemed a pretty fun guy to be friends with. And they seemed like a pretty fun couple and kind of nice to see, friends get together.
Moreover, not all of Amie's friends were entirely impressed. Some people in her circle often felt uneasy around him. In fact, a longtime friend of Amie's, who prefers to stay anonymous, later mentioned that Gareth Pursehouse gave her vibes reminiscent of another seemingly attractive and outwardly pleasant man, the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. Needless to say, that was a significant red flag. According to her, Gareth frequently mirrored behaviors, trying to imitate what he believed were typical human mannerisms. Amie and Gareth initially connected over their shared interest in photography, and things seemed fine at the beginning. However, after just a few months, troubling signs emerged in their relationship. Gareth became abusive and controlling, assaulting her on more than one occasion. He even tried to isolate her from her friends. Although he'd apologize immediately after laying hands on her, the relationship displayed all the signs of toxicity. Despite this, Amie initially attempted to work on the relationship. However, being a licensed therapist, she knew better. So she did what she would have advised any of her clients in that situation. She ended the relationship and cut off all ties. Unfortunately, Gareth remained fixated on Amie and continued to pursue her through various means, even involving mutual friends.
Gareth didn't take that very well at all. He would start to get obsessive. He always wanted to know where she was at. He used to want me to be his go-between, which I did not want to do. He'd always ask me to send her photos, send her links to sappy love songs. And I used to tell him that's not a good idea, and he wouldn't take no for an answer.
Eventually, Amie obtained 2 restraining orders against Gareth in 2011 and 2012, citing instances of physical abuse. The complaints included allegations that Gareth had choked her, suffocated her, pushed her against walls, kicked her, forcefully dropped her to the ground, restrained her, slammed her head into the ground, and punched her with a closed fist. Amie had put in considerable effort to recover from the trauma of her short-lived relationship, and Gareth had seemingly faded into the background of her busy, vibrant life. While she'd largely forgotten about him, it appeared that he had not forgotten about her.
So, breakups suck. It's true. They're never fun for anybody, whether you're the one getting dumped or you're the one doing the dumping. It's always a change of life. It's always some type of transition, and it doesn't feel good. It's going to bring up feelings of anger, sadness. That's normal. But if we never got over a breakup, if it always stayed equally painful, we'd be in a deep, dark sadness hole forever.
For an extended period, Amie firmly believed that her relentless ex-boyfriend was responsible for some of the disparaging and offensive online comments she'd endured. Over time, someone persistently tormented Amie. Periodically, she'd discover malicious posts about her, authored by an unknown source, surfacing on a notorious gossip website. Her suspicions stemmed from the threatening emails Gareth had previously sent to her friends. To her close friends, Amie always referred to him as her stalker, someone she believed was somehow always watching her. However, the situation further escalated when nearly 4 years after the breakup, someone broke into her home, stole her photo albums, and wiped her computer.
He was kind of like a hacker, as a programmer, and I think he may have installed something in her computer. So I went into her house to look at her computer, and it had been wiped. The Windows was no longer installed on the computer. This is not something that happens easily.
On top of that, someone sent explicit photos of her to potential employers, leading to her losing her job. Amie suspected Gareth was behind all this, but she couldn't prove anything since she didn't have a camera at her home. She was so scared that in one instance, before a long trip, she asked her good friend and fellow therapist, Dr. Hernando Chavez, to look after her beloved cat Marquis at his place because she feared someone might break in and harm her cat. Fast forward to January 16, 2020, when Amie unexpectedly encountered her obsessive ex after 8 years. Invited last minute to speak on a mental health and counseling panel at XBiz, an adult film industry gala and award show, Amie was preparing to walk the red carpet with her friend Chavez when she spotted Gareth attending the event as a photographer. She attempted to maintain composure, but for Gareth, the encounter took an unpleasant turn. This is the exact moment when Gareth was seen watching Amie behind all the press. Shortly after this, Gareth approached her, taking advantage of the expired restraining order, as Amie chose not to renew it, avoiding a face-to-face court appearance. Here she was, face-to-face with a person she desperately wanted to avoid. As Amie feared, Gareth lost control after seeing her. He became extremely agitated, yelling, screaming, and causing a scene.
He was yelling in her face, "You ruined my life," and reciting text messages she had sent to him in 2012. and created a giant scene. There's like 100 people in this room, and he is screaming. He's working the event. He's a big guy, and he's screaming at her.
According to Dr. Chavez, who observed them sitting together on a bench near the restrooms and conversing while he waited in line to walk the red carpet, after Purse House's explosive episode, Amie excused herself, adopting a therapeutic approach to de-escalate the situation. She engaged in a 45-minute conversation, attempting to calm him down in the least confrontational manner. While she believed she'd successfully talked him down, the entire incident left her unsettled.
Sometimes we feel that jealousy and we think this is part of the intense love that we feel because it's an intense feeling. But jealousy is not love. Jealousy is fear.
Following the ceremony, an extremely shaken Amie sat with Chavez at a diner, dissecting the events of the evening. According to Chavez, they discussed acquiring mace or pepper spray, changing the locks on her door, and contemplating a visit to the police. Chavez offered to stay overnight, but Amie declined, citing the presence of a new roommate in her house and a sense of security. They finished their meal and parted ways. Later, Amie informed Chavez that she'd obtained mace and pepper spray and had additional locks installed by a handyman. Unaware of the gravity of the situation and the imminent danger to her life, he believed she was taking the necessary precautions to ensure her safety. Amie had also shared her fears with Robert Koshland.
She was like, I want to share my phone location with you, or if anything ever happens to me, it's him.
Just a fortnight after this unexpected encounter, Amie made an unusual request to her parents. She explicitly informed them that in the event of her death, she desired an open casket funeral, an elaborate headstone, and outlined a detailed set of specific wishes. Did she have an intuition that her life was in danger? Nobody knew the answer.
Jealousy can become dangerous, and it can even lead to violence, or, for example, the O.J. Simpson case, it can lead to death.
However, the question of whether Gareth was truly the assailant needed to come to light. And there was one clue that had been sitting there in plain sight all along. A canvass of the area uncovered additional evidence of an intruder entering the property and leaving after the murder. Investigators meticulously examined all the security cameras in the neighborhood to identify any suspicious activity. Much to their satisfaction, one of the neighbor's security cameras captured glimpses of Gareth Purse House before he tampered with the camera. Detectives formulated a theory suggesting that Gareth broke into Amie's home, likely around the time that Herman heard a sound resembling the smashing of a plate earlier that night. They speculated that Gareth waited for hours for Amie to return with the intention of causing her harm. Moments after Amie arrived home, he launched his attack. Despite her attempts to defend herself, Gareth, being a physically imposing man, overwhelmed her, stifling her cries for help. He proceeded to strangle her and then threw her from the third-floor balcony before making his escape. On February 15, 2020, at around 4:45 p.m., 41-year-old Purse House was apprehended at his Playa del Rey residence on suspicion of murder. Detectives noted multiple bruises on his body, believed to have occurred during the struggle with Amie. Additionally, the investigators discovered the same brand of syringes at his home as those found at the crime scene, strengthening their suspicion. Despite initially being released after posting a $2 million bond, concerns about Gareth potentially fleeing the country led to his rearrest less than 24 hours later. He was charged with burglary and murder, to which he pleaded not guilty. During Gareth's time in jail, some interesting family history came to light. It seems being an abusive partner was somewhat of a legacy in Gareth's family. His father, Paul Purse House, who passed away in July 2019, also had a restraining order issued against him by his ex-fiancée, Deborah Vale. Similar to Amie, Vale had to endure harassment from her obsessive ex-lover who refused to accept rejection. Paul had been harassing her through various means: phone calls, emails, in person, and even through her friends. The only difference was that Vale managed to escape with her life, unlike Amie. Another peculiar detail surfaced with a video of Gareth telling a joke about a scene from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, first season, the brother and sister are up in the castle, and the brother has to go and throw the kid off and to kill him. And even though it's evil, I feel kind of bad for the brother.
While the joke might seem innocent, considering what he did to Amie, it takes on a creepy undertone. Despite being a high-profile case, the trial was significantly delayed, nearly 3 years, due to the impact of COVID-19. Finally, on August 29, 2023, the trial commenced in Los Angeles Superior Court. Gareth Pursehouse appeared, and he seemed notably different, having gained a considerable amount of weight. From the outset, the prosecution explicitly stated their belief that Gareth had strangled Harwick and then pushed her off the balcony in a planned and premeditated attack.
The evidence in this case is going to show that Dr. Amie Harwick was murdered by defendant Gareth Pursehouse because he was obsessed with her. She rejected his advances. Not only that, she cut off all contact. And to punish her for that, he broke into her house on Valentine's Day. He broke in there with a syringe loaded with a lethal dose of nicotine. And then he waited for her until she got home. He waited there for hours for her. When she arrived, she went up to her third-story bedroom and got caught by surprise by the defendant. He immediately attacked her, as evidence will show. He strangled her. And then her roommate, who was asleep in the bottom level, heard the screaming and yelled out, "Leave her alone." The evidence is going to show the defendant panicked at that moment, took Amie Harwick's debilitated body over to her bedroom balcony, lifted her up over the balcony, and dropped her to her death.
Along with all the supporting evidence, the prosecution also presented the DNA evidence found under Amie's fingernails and on a French door in her living room which matched Gareth, putting him directly at the crime scene. Many of Amie's friends also testified about Amie's fear and Gareth's irrational behavior in the X-Biz show. The defense, on the other hand, contended that Gareth didn't go to Amie's house with the intention of killing her. Instead, he was depressed after meeting Amie at the awards show and only went there to talk to her.
What Gareth Pursehouse intended to do when he broke into her house on the 14th of February in 2020. The evidence will show that he was reacting from within this fog of depression and that he was going to talk to her. That his only intention that night was to speak to her.
They argued that Gareth was in a genuine emotional crisis and that the nicotine syringe was intended for himself, not Amie. The defense also suggested that it was possible Amie first attacked him to subdue him, and that she might have climbed over the balcony railing in an attempt to escape him. In response, the prosecutors argued that Amie's injuries did not support the idea of her trying to climb down from the balcony. They contended that the best way for her to escape would have been to run towards the stairs to her roommate and seek help. The prosecution further added that there was no provocation in this case and that Gareth intended to kill Harwick all along. On September 27, 2023, after deliberating for nearly 8 hours, a California jury found Gareth Pursehouse guilty on all counts. His sentencing is scheduled to take place on December 6, 2023, and he faces a potential life sentence without parole. The verdict in Amie Harwick's case was acknowledged by her friend Robert Koshland, who stated that while there may never be complete closure in such situations, at least justice was served in her case. Amie, a trained professional, faced this tragedy despite her knowledge and ability to navigate such circumstances. This raises concerns about the safety of women, not just her clients, but women in general. The issue of domestic violence is deeply alarming, as indicated by law enforcement data, reporting that 34% of individuals in the U.S. killed by an intimate partner were alone. The number is even higher for women. In light of this concern, Amie's friends have initiated a petition advocating for a new law, termed Amie's Law, designed to strengthen court-imposed restraining orders to prevent domestic violence. The proposed legislation seeks to eliminate expiration dates on restraining orders, ensuring that protections remain in place until the victim feels genuinely safe. Advocates emphasize the need for legal changes in Amie's honor, working towards preventing similar tragedies from befalling others.
If we don't feel safe in our homes and our neighborhoods, if we feel that we could be emotionally or physically attacked at any time, maybe we're being stalked or we live in an unsafe environment, we work in an unsafe environment, we're not going to be able to care for ourselves effectively. So we need to consider these things and make changes if necessary.
I'm on 560 westbound, just past, I believe, the Buffalo exit, and I think there's a body on the side of the road.
To die of a death of that, a gruesome death, it was just gut-wrenching to see that. It's something that'll stick with me the rest of my life.
The violence was so extreme that when the police discovered her, it seemed as though her body had been drained of all its blood. The victim was identified as a 21-year-old university student, Latrese Curtis.
When law enforcement first arrived, her body was located just over an embankment, just sort of at the top of an embankment. She had been stabbed so many times. All of the blood had been drained, and she was so pallid and pale that it was very clear that there were gaping holes of her skin that had been sliced open. This was absolutely a targeted murder because of the number of stab wounds that were on her body. It wasn't just, I want her dead. I want her beyond dead.
But the pressing questions were, who could be desperate enough to commit such a gruesome act in the middle of the highway? And why? Nestled in the southeastern region of the United States, North Carolina is a state rich in diverse landscapes and cultural offerings. Residents revel in the state's diverse geography, with sandy beaches along the Atlantic coast and the majestic peaks of the Appalachian Mountains. Despite its overall appeal, North Carolina unfortunately contends with a higher crime rate, and today we delve into one of its most disturbing cases. Latrese Curtis was born as Latrese Matral Jones to Sherman and Cynthia Jones on May 28, 1986, in Raleigh, North Carolina. She shared a loving home with her older brothers, Justin and Marlon. She was affectionately known as Treese. During her upbringing, Latrese was a constant companion to her father, to such an extent that her father often referred to her as his little boy in a dress because she engaged in activities typically associated with fathers and sons. Perhaps it was influenced by growing up in a home with older brothers.
We did a lot of fishing. I even took her hunting one time. I taught her everything that I knew about basketball. I taught her to dribble. I taught her to shoot. I taught her the layups. She was a daddy's girl all the way. No doubt about it.
Remaining the same throughout her time in junior high, things took a turn for Latrese in high school. She was now blossoming into a full-fledged woman and began engaging in all the typical activities of a teenager.
I think that she got her nails painted and got her hair done, and that was the end of basketball.
Gifted with good looks and an infectious smile, Latrese had no trouble making friends. She was one of the most popular girls in high school. She was loved by everybody around her and lived life to the fullest. Friends described her as someone who always had a smile on her face and knew how to make others laugh. So naturally, admirers flocked to her. But she mostly stayed out of trouble, mainly because her dad, Sherman, was a juvenile corrections officer. He was happy seeing that, despite all the attention, Latrese always put her education first. Her hard work paid off when she was accepted into Bennett College in Raleigh, North Carolina, which she attended from 2004 to 2005. From there, she transferred to Wake Tech Community College in Greensboro, North Carolina. After spending some time there, Latrese was thrilled to enroll at North Carolina Central University, pursuing a major in accounting. Despite all her successes, Latrese remained humble and supportive. Friends fondly recalled that she was always there for them in tough times, offering honest opinions whenever they sought her advice.
She was always with a smile on her face, and she was always encouraging to everyone, even if we come to her with our problems.
During her first semester at NCCU, Latrese crossed paths with Latrese Curtis, a fellow accounting student and former National Guard soldier. Darren, who was 5 years her senior, also hailed from Raleigh.
Darren was sweet. He was shy, kind of reserved.
While dating might not have been Latrese's immediate focus, her connection with Darren was special. They quickly hit it off, and it was evident to everyone that they were deeply in love.
And he definitely seemed like he matched her. Just the way he talked to us showed me that he was very respectful.
Not long after they began dating, just 1 year into their relationship, Latrese and Doerman made the life-changing decision to spend the rest of their lives together. Despite the magnitude of their commitment, they were serious and well-prepared. Both dedicated to their accounting careers, they juggled part-time jobs to support themselves. Latrese worked in the Human Resources Department at Sears in the Triangle Town Center Mall in Raleigh, while Doerman was employed at a local firm in Raleigh. So finally, on April 27, 2007, the couple exchanged vows, with Latrese officially becoming Mrs. Curtis. The wedding didn't sit well with Latrese's family. Despite her previous introduction of Doerman to the family during their dating phase, the news of the wedding hit them like a bomb. Besides Doerman's shy, reserved, and respectful nature on the surface, they practically didn't know anything about him. So naturally, for everyone in their family, and especially for Latrese's protective father, Sherman, the marriage came under intense scrutiny.
The thing that wasn't respectful to me was that he never said anything to me about wanting to marry my daughter. I feel like he should have came and talked to me about it, but they never told me anything.
The marriage was also a surprise for Latrese's friends, as she'd kept everything hush-hush.
But one day she came to work. She was in her junior year at the time. And we saw a ring on her finger. And she told us, she was like, you guys, I got married. And we're like, what? So we were definitely shocked.
Against all odds, the pair moved into an apartment in Austin Grove, Raleigh, starting a new chapter in their lives. They were brimming with hopes and dreams for a joyful and prosperous future. A future that would come crashing down in the most horrific way possible just 9 months later. By January 2008, Latrese, at 21 years old, was in her senior year at the university, while Doerman had already graduated. During this period, Latrese shifted her classes to the evening, allocating her daytime for work and future planning. It became known among her friends that she was contemplating starting a family, expressing her desire to have a baby right after Christmas that year. However, she confided in a friend, Anisha Baldwin, expressing concerns about Doerman not being ready. Sadly, what the future had in store for her was beyond her imagination. On weekdays, Latrese usually returned home at around 8 p.m. after a long day of classes, making the 30-minute drive from Durham to Raleigh. Doerman typically arrived home 15 to 30 minutes after her. However, this routine would be disrupted on the night of January 29, 2008, and life would never be the same again. On the cold winter morning of January 30, 2008, around 7:30 a.m., David Jones was heading westbound on Interstate 540. As traffic began to slow down, David glanced to the right, and something captured his attention.
I was traveling to a meeting going along 540, and as I was driving, I noticed something on the shoulder of the road.
He noticed an object on an embankment that stood out from the surrounding foliage along the highway. As he stopped his vehicle and approached for a closer look, he was met with a horrifying sight. It was a dead body. After taking a moment to absorb the shock, he promptly dialed 911 to report the discovery.
I'm on 560 westbound, just past, I believe, the Buffalo exit, and I think there's a body on the side of the road.
Law enforcement officers discovered the body on an embankment of the I-540 near the Buffalo exit, just as David had reported. The deceased woman was clad in a white shirt and torn blue jeans, bearing multiple stab wounds across her body. The vicious attack had drained all the blood from her, rendering her body pale. The extent of the injuries was severe, with gaping holes sliced into her skin. Homicide detectives were called to the scene, and based on the condition of her body, they estimated that she'd been deceased for several hours. The number of stab wounds indicated that this was not a random attack, but a targeted killing, a deliberate and cruel act. Clearly, somebody wanted her beyond dead. The body was sent for autopsy, and the immediate task was to establish her identity. However, no identification was found on her at that point, and the search for clues continued. Meanwhile, around 9:30 a.m., Latrese's father, Sherman, was watching the news on his television when it was reported that a body had been discovered on I-540.
Breaking news. Body found on I-540. Had a tarp over it. Nothing clicked.
However, he was anxious for a different reason. Sherman had been attempting to reach Latrese, but had got no answer. He also tried to contact Darren without success. The poor father had no inkling that these two events were connected until hours later when he received devastating news from the police. Back at the crime scene, authorities discovered a phone several hundred feet east of the victim's body along the I-540 westbound. The phone had been turned off and exposed to rain and the elements. Additionally, a white Nissan Sentra was located less than a mile away from the scene, believed to belong to the victim. Inside the car, blood was found and the console was broken, indicating that the attack had occurred within the vehicle. Forensic teams collected DNA samples from various areas in the car for analysis. Running the license plate, they found it registered in the name of 21-year-old Latrese Curtis. Once the victim was identified, a crucial piece of information surfaced. Darren, Latrese's husband, had called 911 that same morning, reporting that his wife hadn't returned home.
911, where's your emergency?
I live in Raleigh, but my wife goes to school out at North Carolina Central, and she did not come home last night. I talked to her last night. She was on her way home. She was in the car and everything. She hadn't showed up.
The last known place she was at NCCU. Did you talk to her while she was driving?
Yes, she had the radio on and everything. She told me she was stopping to get something to eat. I don't know if she was still in Durham when she called me or she was on 540 coming back in around.
Darren claimed that he received a call from Latrese the previous night at around 10 p.m., where she informed him that she was on her way home. Surprisingly, as the detectives were examining the car, Darren arrived at the scene. He explained the situation, stating that he was on his way to work and that he took the I-540 as part of his daily routine, and today he'd suddenly spotted his wife's car and stopped. While the investigation was ongoing, Sherman got in touch with the sheriff's department. That's how he learned that his precious daughter had passed away, devastating the entire family.
Me and my wife, we didn't say a word to each other going down there. Not one single word. We got down there, it's probably about 11 o'clock. And they had us sitting in this room. They finally came out and told us that the girl's body that they found on 540 was identified as Latrese.
Around 11 a.m., Darren Curtis was also brought in for questioning. During the interview with the detectives, Darren claimed that after receiving the last call from Latrese, he fell asleep and woke up the next morning between 6 to 7 a.m. Realizing that Latrese still hadn't made it back home, he then called the police. As the spouse of the victim, Darren was automatically considered a suspect. On top of this, his story of simply falling asleep during the night and not making an effort to find his wife sounded peculiar to the detectives. It was also suspicious that he was heading to work without any word from his wife, but conveniently spotted Latrese's car. Additionally, he lacked an alibi to confirm that he was at home all night. Latrese's family was also disappointed that Darren didn't go out looking for her. Sherman later mentioned that Darren seemed nonchalant about Latrese being missing.
And then never checked to see if she was home. My wife's not home. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to find out where she's at.
However, he cooperated with the authorities by providing his fingerprints and DNA sample and allowing them to photograph him. They also conducted searches of his apartment and car, but found no indications of any wrongdoing. Additionally, they questioned several neighbors about the Curtises' relationship, but none had any specific information to share. Everyone conveyed that they seemed like a happy couple.
Reporters do a lot of what police officers do. We try to find people that are close to the victim. I was asked to go knock on Darren Curtis's door. He did not answer the door that day. I don't know if he was home or not. And we spoke to a few neighbors, and they basically said, we had no idea that there were any issues. We believed that they were just a regular young married couple working hard, coming and going. And no, we never heard anything or saw anything to give us pause.
With no evidence tying Darren to the crime scene, he was released, leaving lingering doubts and unanswered questions. Was Darren concealing something? Was their seemingly perfect relationship hiding darker layers? Did Darren possess secrets that could have driven him to harm his wife? However, before detectives could pursue these questions, a significant lead emerged in the case thanks to a tip. From this point, the investigation took a dark turn, unveiling a tale of lies, secrets, and a deadly love triangle. At 1:30 a.m. on the night of the murder, Highway Patrol Trooper Isaac Cooper noticed a Chrysler Pacifica near the crime scene on the I-540. The hazard lights were on, the driver's side window was partially down, and despite intermittent rain, the door was unlocked with the keys in the ignition, but there was no one in sight. It was parked on the opposite side of the I-540 from where Latrese's body was discovered. When the license plate was checked, it was linked to a 43-year-old man named Robert Lee Adams Reeves, a former pastor at Cedar of Lebanon Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. Robert resided in Durham, and by January 2002, he'd founded Cedar International Fellowship in Brooklyn, where he served as the minister. Referred to as the Bishop, a nickname he gave himself, Robert was widely recognized in his community. Among his friends, Robert was esteemed as an energetic, intelligent, and diligent individual, as well as a man of God.
Robert was an excellent preacher, excellent teacher, very articulate, very excellent organizer. Anything he put his mind to became excellent because he just excelled and he stayed focused. Robert was well known not only down here in places we traveled, several places around the United States.
While Robert was a familiar figure in the church communities of North Carolina, Latrese's family had no prior knowledge of him.
Didn't know nothing about Robert Reeves. Never seen him before in my life. I'm looking at him. Okay, my daughter's 21. This dude's 50-something. What in the world is going on? How did she know this guy?
What connection did Robert Reeves have with Latrese Curtis, and how did his car end up near the crime scene? To uncover the answers to these questions, authorities questioned Robert Reeves on January 30th, 2008 at around 3 p.m., merely hours after the murder. During interrogation, Robert spoke very little, but he did come forward with information when asked the whereabouts of him and his vehicle. He mentioned that the day before, he'd only been to church and then returned home. Robert also said that he'd given his car to his roommate, Stephen Randolph, to drive because his own car was out of service. And there it was. The connection between Latrese Curtis and Robert Reeves was Stephen Randolph, who happened to be a fellow accounting student at NCCU. With a third person now in the mix, the police took Robert's DNA, fingerprints, and photos, just like they had with Darren. Robert had cuts on his hands and legs, but he explained them away as injuries from moving a desk. While this raised suspicions, authorities lacked substantial evidence against him, so he was let go. The murder investigation became even more complex with 3 men now under suspicion for the same crime, leaving more questions than answers.
You got 3 men involved in this. 1 woman involved in this. What is the connection with these 3 men and this 1 woman?
Detectives knew that they had to look into Stephen closely. As a senior at NCCU, he shared the same academic year with Latrese. On campus, he was recognized as a charming ladies' man and a talented basketball player. However, the connection between Latrese and Stephen went beyond mere classmates. Unbeknownst to others, they were engaged in a clandestine affair. On February 1st, 2008, 2 days after the gruesome murder, Stephen was brought in for formal interrogation. When questioned about their relationship, he admitted to having an affair with Latrese, but downplayed its seriousness. According to Stephen, they grew close while attending classes together and initiated their relationship in September 2007. He claimed to be aware that Latrese was married, but asserted that she didn't provide many details. Latrese had told Stephen that she was separated from her husband, whereas in reality, they were newlyweds with no apparent marital issues. Interestingly, Stephen had another girlfriend named Velma Newton who was unaware of Stephen's affair. Latrese seemed to have a good understanding that Stephen wasn't seeking a serious relationship, and she was comfortable with the level of their companionship. Latrese had kept this affair hidden from everyone, including her friends and family, possibly out of fear of their disapproval.
she was having an affair. I'm not sure why she didn't tell us. I don't know if she maybe felt like we was going to judge her.
If I knew what she was up to and that she was having an affair, I would have had a talk with her. We would have had a serious talk. I always just reminded her of wrong from right, what you're supposed to do. Probably why she never spoke to me about seeing another man. Because she probably knew exactly what I was going to do and what I was going to say.
Robert Reeves escorted Stephen Randolph into the police and said he's here and he was willing to submit to questions to you. He complied with giving his DNA and getting his fingerprints. I think that there is a certain type of criminal who is willing to walk into a police station and is willing to comply with police and wants to come in. They're proud of their handiwork and they want to come in and see if the police can figure it out.
Stephen also revealed that it was late in 2007 when he moved into Robert Reeves's house. Within a few days of settling in, he'd invited Latrese over for a study date. One thing led to another, and they ended up sleeping together. From that point forward, they occasionally engaged in intimate encounters. According to Stephen, on the evening of January 29, 2008 as well, Latrese came to his place and they ended up sleeping together. After their encounter, just before 10 p.m., she decided to go home. Following Latrese's departure, Stephen headed to the residence of his other girlfriend, Velma, and met with several friends. However, shortly afterward, he received a phone call from Latrese. Latrese told Stephen over the phone that she might be pregnant and wanted to take their relationship further, and he agreed to discuss it the next time they saw each other. Shortly after this phone conversation, he received another call from Latrese's phone. He answered the phone, but no one said anything. Stephen stayed at Newton's house until around 1:30 a.m., then drove home and went to sleep. When he woke up the next morning for an early class, he noticed a call had come in from Latrese's phone around 2 a.m. Stephen also informed the police about another detail. He and his other girlfriend, Velma, had been receiving strange phone calls, and about a month before Latrese died, their tires were slashed. This incident led him to occasionally borrow Robert's car. However, he emphasized that he hadn't taken Robert's car out for about 2 weeks since his own car had been repaired, and that he had nothing to do with Latrese's death. Just like the other two men, Stephen gave the police his fingerprints and DNA and was photographed. Although he wasn't ruled out as a suspect just yet, he was let go. After Stephen's interrogation, the detectives were left with a bunch of new questions. Was Stephen being straight with them or spinning a tale? Could he be desperate enough to harm Latrese to protect his image, especially now that she was seeking a more serious relationship? Or did Darren catch wind of his wife's deception and decide to take matters into his own hands? And what role might Robert have played in this whole situation? Unfortunately, these were all just speculations. To nail down solid evidence, the police had to bide their time for the lab test results. Meanwhile, as they attempted to piece together a timeline for the murder, they stumbled upon another nugget of information. Kimberly Parker, one of Latrese's closest friends, also got an odd call from Latrese's cell phone at 2 a.m. on January 30th, 2008. She picked up the call and was met with the eerie sounds of wind, footsteps on gravel, and passing cars.
I was in my bed and my phone was ringing. Latrese usually doesn't call late at night. That was kind of strange to me. So I picked up the phone. I heard a lot of movement. I heard cars driving by. It sounded like it was close to the highway. Something inside me just told me to just remain on the phone. I was saying, Latrese, 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 until I hung up the phone.
Concerned, Kimberly dialed back, but the call went straight to voicemail. Little did she anticipate the kind of news that awaited her the next time she heard Latrese's name.
I got off work and I went in my mother's room. And my mother, she was like, Kimberly, that body they found, that was Latrese. And all I could say was no. No, because she called me last night. I was just like, no. I don't think it's her. And she kept saying, yes, it is. And that's when I broke down.
The autopsy report revealed the gruesome details of Latrese's death, indicating that her throat had been slit and she'd suffered around 40 stab wounds to her face, head, neck, and torso. Additionally, she'd sustained a blunt force injury to her head, specifically behind her right ear. The disturbing nature of the injuries was heightened by the fact that they'd penetrated her carotid artery, jugular vein, and even severed her vocal cords. One of the wounds extended from one side of her neck to the other, suggesting an attempt to decapitate her. The reports also noted signs of a violent struggle with damage to Latrese's fingernails. The estimated time of death was between 1 and 2 a.m., implying that when Stephen received his final call from Latrese, followed by her call to Kimberly, she was likely already deceased. But why would the killer use Latrese's phone to contact her loved ones? Was it driven by sadistic pleasure, or was it an attempt to mislead the investigation? Regardless of the answers to these questions, the police didn't have to wait too long to apprehend the perpetrator. On February 2, 2008, Sherman received a phone call informing him that an arrest had been made in his daughter's case.
About 2 o'clock in the morning, sheriff called me. Told me we have the man that killed your daughter in jail. We jumped up, we hugged, we laughed, we cried. We're so happy. And I only had one question. Who did it?
To the shock of many, the individual turned out to be Robert Reeves, who was accused of first-degree murder. Despite his protests of innocence, incriminating evidence was discovered, including his DNA found on the steering wheel and other items inside Latrese's car. No additional charges were brought against anyone else. The revelation was met with disbelief by those who knew Robert, particularly considering his standing as the bishop, a respected figure in the religious community.
I never known Robert to be a violent person. I never saw him angry.
But why would a man with the least connection to Latrese kill her? Was he acting on behalf of someone else, or did he harbor a far more sinister motive?
There was no way he should have been in the picture at all. If anything, it should have been a duel between Stephen and Darren. He had no business in the picture at all. I want to know why. Who is this man? Why he do this?
It doesn't make sense that he is the guy because he doesn't have a direct connection to Latrese Curtis. And that's frustrating for the family. It is confusing for the media and for the general public who's following this case.
The true motives behind Robert's actions didn't become clear until the trial began. On September 29, 2009, the trial of Robert Reeves commenced in a Wake County courthouse.
Walking into this trial, the very first thing the prosecutor says in this case, this is going to be a unique case, and it's going to get very complicated, and it's going to get very strange very quickly.
The proceedings brought forth a wealth of information, with particular emphasis on the testimony of Stephen Randolph, which exposed the dual life led by Robert Reeves. Stephen Randolph first met Robert Reeves in the spring of 2007 while Stephen was working part-time at a car wash and was struggling financially. Curious, Robert asked Stephen what he did for a living, to which Stephen answered that he was trying to find a secure job. Robert, identifying himself as a clinical research associate, offered to assist Stephen in securing employment. Following this, the two met multiple times at South Point Mall, where Robert floated the idea of Stephen living at his house. Stephen didn't have a stable living situation, so he accepted the offer, agreeing to pay $300 per month. Willie Mae Thorpe, Robert's sister, also lived in the house with Robert and had a separate bedroom upstairs, so Stephen moved into the basement. For a short while, Stephen thought his issues were sorted out, but it didn't last. Initially, he thought that Robert was just being helpful, but he soon realized that there was another side to him. In December 2007, Robert expressed his disapproval of Stephen bringing girls home. Before Stephen could deal with this problem, the situation took a more serious turn. To Stephen's horror, Robert made inappropriate advances towards him, even going so far as to offer him free rent in exchange for agreeing to his terms. Robert asked if Stephen was interested in being involved in an escort service, claiming it would help him financially. Although Stephen considered it, he ultimately told Robert no. Despite this, Robert continued to make advances towards Stephen, who consistently turned him down. Though Stephen was disgusted by Robert's behavior, he was still living in Robert's house, as he was still struggling to achieve financial stability. To ensure his own safety, he borrowed a 9mm Ruger from his cousin and kept it under his pillow. Towards the end of 2007, both Stephen and his girlfriend Velma started receiving threatening phone calls from an anonymous caller. The caller warned Stephen, threatening to end his basketball career and break his legs if he didn't stop whatever activities he was involved in. During one of these calls, the anonymous caller mentioned that he hoped Stephen had a gun. Strangely, Stephen's gun had gone missing earlier that same day. It was later revealed that Robert had confiscated the gun. On December 11, 2007, Stephen intended to go to Velma's house, but his car had a flat tire. He fixed it at a gas station and proceeded to Velma's house. Later that same night, as he left her house to return to Robert's house, he discovered that all 4 of his tires had been slashed. The next day, Robert, being helpful, let Stephen drive his car to school until he could get the money to repair his car. Over the Christmas break in 2007, Stephen visited his home in Baltimore. Meanwhile, Velma got a strange call where the caller confessed to slashing Velma's tires and said sorry. Soon after, Newton found out her tires were indeed slashed. All these incidents only implicated one man, Robert Reeves. During the investigation, the police found that Robert had 3 phones, a house phone, a cell phone, and a cell phone he called his fun phone, or the one he used for play. This specific phone number matched the calls that Stephen and his girlfriend received. The phone's location also aligned with where the tires had been slashed. The prosecution argued that Robert was obsessed with Stephen Randolph and was determined to pursue a relationship with him at any cost. They believed he chose to kill Latrese in a jealous rage because she stood in the way of his perceived relationship with Stephen. They contended that Robert likely followed Latrese after she left his house on the night of January 29, 2008, and took advantage of an opportunity when she pulled over on the highway, attacking and killing her in a fit of jealous rage. The prosecution also suggested that he used Latrese's phone to make calls after the murder. In addition to the other evidence, the police found a partially melted trash can at Reeves's house containing accelerant and fabric. It was believed that this was an attempt to burn the clothes he wore during the crime.
It was a collection of things that revealed the fact that he had this dual life, that he was this bishop and this sexual predator, and it was the motive for the homicide.
The defense, on their part, argued that Robert had a disability. His left arm was half paralyzed because he'd been mugged in New York and stabbed in this arm. They stated that Robert couldn't carry anything heavy with his left hand and didn't have a good grip with that hand, and the use of his left hand was very minimal. Therefore, it wouldn't have been possible for him to stab Latrese so many times with one hand. The defense team also sought to convince the jury that investigators had apprehended the wrong man, asserting that Stephen, not Robert, had a motive for the killing. They argued that Stephen was concerned about the potential of an unwanted pregnancy with Latrese and feared jeopardizing his future. They also highlighted that Stephen had a knife collection, which included a cane sword, yet investigators never tested them for blood or DNA evidence. During their closing arguments, Robert's attorneys attempted to cast doubt on the state's case by questioning whether investigators followed proper procedures and protocols in collecting and testing evidence. However, in the end, all these efforts fell short against the enormous physical evidence the state had. After 2 days of deliberations, the jury determined that the state had provided evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Reeves had killed Latrese. On October 9, 2009, 44-year-old Robert Reeves was found guilty of the first-degree murder of 21-year-old Latrese Curtis and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Currently, Robert Reeves is serving his life sentence at the Pasquotank Correctional Institution in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Sherman Jones, the father of the murder victim Latrese Curtis, addressed the media after the conviction of the man who killed his daughter. Expressing his heartbreak, he used strong words to convey his feelings, saying, "There's no more waiting, no more wondering. Maybe now we can go on with our lives. This man, he's a predator. He was tried for one murder, but he killed 3 or 4 of us. He killed my daughter. He killed me, my wife, and he killed himself." While Sherman and the family were undoubtedly relieved at the killer being caught, the pain of losing their beloved Latrese never left them.
I really don't know what the word closure means, because I hear it all the time, but it's been 12 years, and I ain't got no closure yet. So I guess I'm still waiting on it to come. I see her every day, and it ain't closed yet. It's still there. It's still there. I still cry. I still wonder why.
As we conclude the story, this tragic murder surely leaves a lasting impression on our minds. Latrese may have made a few wrong choices in life, but in no way did she deserve to have her life taken in such a horrific way at the age of 21 with her whole life ahead of her. What's your take on this story? What do you think made Robert so desperate to commit such a gruesome crime? Or do you believe there were more secrets to this deadly love triangle?
Communications. I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we're snaking a drain, and we've been pulling back. We probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
This 911 call transports us back to December 29th, 2017, at a residence on Macmillan Drive in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. The caller, Sean Farndon, a plumber by profession, was met with a disturbing discovery of human flesh clogging the drains. The subsequent investigation led the police to the downstairs neighbor, a 45-year-old man named Adam Strong. To everyone's astonishment, Strong promptly confessed to having human remains in his freezer. However, this was neither the beginning nor the end of this strange and twisted tale. This macabre account has a deeper and more complex backstory that demanded further exploration. To whom did the remains belong? And how did they come to be in the bathroom's drains? Located in the province of Ontario, Canada, Oshawa holds the distinction of being the 6th largest city in the province. Positioned approximately 60 kilometers east of Toronto, it enjoys a picturesque setting along the shoreline of Lake Ontario, and its population exceeds 170,000. While Oshawa was once renowned as the sole automotive capital of Canada, it's since transformed into an education and health sciences hub, though General Motors continues to play a significant role in the city's economy. The city also offers a plethora of educational and employment opportunities. Due to its relatively low crime rate, it's esteemed as a safe and family-friendly area, making it an appealing choice for commuters. Despite this enchanting backdrop, in 2017, Oshawa experienced a harrowing crime that shook the nation to its core. On September 11, 2017, a disturbing discovery was made in Lake Ontario near the Oshawa Harbor. An 11-year-old boy fishing with his grandfather noticed a floating torso in the water. Authorities immediately responded to the scene, recovering the torso and initiating a thorough investigation.
On the 11th of September 2017, we received a call from some fishermen that were down on the pier.
They saw something in the water, and they thought at first it was a turkey carcass, and they began to cast their spoons. But once it landed on the cement pier, it became pretty apparent that it was the torso of a female.
Despite extensive searches conducted by marine units, no other body parts were found. A post-mortem examination was carried out, revealing that the torso belonged to a female, but the cause of death remained inconclusive. Nevertheless, evident signs of trauma led the coroner to determine it was a homicide. The absence of a head posed a significant challenge in identifying the body, so DNA testing was the only viable option. It wasn't until November 9, 2017, 2 months after the disturbing discovery, that the heartbreaking truth was revealed. The torso belonged to Rori Hache, an 18-year-old pregnant Oshawa woman who'd gone missing in late August of the same year. Born on July 9, 1999, Rori Chantal Hache was the apple of the eye of her mother, Shannon Dion. While not much is known about her father, some of her relatives had a reputation for leading a daring lifestyle. Her grandfather, Bernard Gwindon, a former outlaw biker, gangster, and boxer, gained notoriety as the founder and national president of the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club. Rori's uncle, Harley Gwindon, was also an active member of the Hells Angels, another outlaw motorcycle club. Despite these familial associations, Rori's childhood was relatively uneventful, and she was described as a kind and bright young girl. In addition to her mother, Rori shared a deep bond with her godmother and Shannon's closest friend, Chrissia Mildick. Just like Shannon, Chrissia too had only good things to say about Rori. During her early years, Rori excelled in school, even earning the prestigious title of Army Cadet of the Year in her local squad at the age of 13. However, Rori's life changed for the worse during the first year of high school when someone introduced crystal meth to her, which triggered addiction struggles. In the subsequent years, Rori's life became tumultuous, with drugs becoming a significant part of her existence. Desperate to cope with her addiction, she turned to prostitution, causing great distress to her mother, Shannon. Shannon, in turn, sought external assistance from the Children's Aid Society to help her daughter overcome these challenges. Thankfully, her efforts paid off in the beginning of 2017 when Rori finally began to make strides towards improving her life. She secured a job, returned to school, and found stability by moving in with her boyfriend, Tony. Despite her past struggles, Rori was determined to turn her life around and find a better path for herself. In August 2017, Rori told her mother that she was pregnant. She really wanted to keep the baby, so Shannon supported her. But what Shannon didn't know was that Rori had relapsed into drug use. On August 28, 2019, near the Midtown Mall in Oshawa, Rori had an encounter with Constable Christopher Kane. Over the years, Constable Kane had conducted wellness checks on Rori and made earnest efforts to connect her with social services to aid in her struggles. During their conversation, Rori revealed that she'd been using drugs again, including cocaine and crystal meth, and had gone on dates to pay for these drugs. Deeply concerned for Rori's well-being, Constable Kane resolved to find suitable social services to assist her. Unfortunately, the teenager had vanished by the time he returned. On August 29, 2017, the day after her encounter with Constable Christopher Kane, Rori was brought into an Oshawa hospital by a friend and her mother after suffering a mental relapse. Unfortunately, they were unable to remain with her for an undisclosed reason, and after only a few minutes, they departed, leaving Rori alone at the hospital. Strangely, just 15 minutes later, Rori made a decision to leave the hospital premises before receiving the necessary medical assistance.
She was described as having some sort of a mental episode. The mother made a decision to take her up to the hospital to have her checked. The mother and daughter that brought her there left, leaving Rori in the care of the hospital. For whatever reason, she ended up leaving before she was actually seen by a physician. We see her exiting the hospital on her own. That was the last known sighting we had of her.
Surveillance footage captured her calmly walking out of the hospital, marking the last confirmed sighting of her. From that point on, her whereabouts were unknown. When Rori's family and friends didn't hear from her for a few days, their concerns grew.
I went over to her apartment. Nothing had changed. She hadn't been there. Nobody had heard from her. I realized something's wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. And I had a really bad feeling.
Fearing the worst, they filed a missing persons report with the Durham police, sparking a citywide search. They also distributed missing flyers throughout the area with her photograph on display.
I made thousands of missing persons posters. There wasn't a place that you could go downtown Oshawa that you didn't see my goddaughter's face. I made sure that every post had her picture.
Sadly, every effort to locate Rori Hache remained futile until DNA evidence finally linked the recovered torso to her, confirming the devastating truth that she had become the victim of a violent crime.
You don't know how your sweet goddaughter ended up dismembered and the rest of her is missing and thrown in a lake like she's a piece of garbage in our little town.
But the case was far from over. The police still faced the daunting task of locating the remaining parts of her body and piecing together the puzzle surrounding her tragic demise. A breakthrough was on the horizon, but remarkably, it came about in a manner that defied all expectations. Just 2 months after the torso was found, a couple living in the upstairs apartment at 19 McMillan Drive had persistent plumbing issues plaguing their home. The situation escalated to the point where the couple had no choice but to call in plumbers on December 29, 2017.
He didn't want any plumbers called. He tried snaking the drain himself. He was taking efforts to fix it.
Since no blockage was found in the upstairs toilet, the plumbers requested entry to the apartment of the downstairs neighbor, 45-year-old Adam Strong. As they began their work in the basement toilet, a foul smell filled the air. This was unlike anything they'd encountered in their regular line of work. It was utterly appalling. The situation became even more unsettling when Adam's behavior took a nervous turn. He paced the floor, closely scrutinizing their every move and asking them numerous questions. Although the plumbers were annoyed by his behavior, they chose to brush it off. Adam justified it by saying that he was simply curious, as he'd attempted to fix the problem before but failed. They probably would have ignored him altogether, but what they found inside the pipe changed everything. To their horror, they extracted a disturbing 18-inch long, pink, flesh-like, stringy substance with hair attached to it. Alarmed by the shocking find, they wasted no time and immediately contacted the police to report what they'd encountered.
Communications. I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we got we're snaking a drain, and we've been pulling back. We probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
Within minutes, the officers from the Durham Regional Police arrived at the rental property. They determined that the fleshy substance was indeed human flesh. After gathering crucial information from the plumbers and the concerned couple, the officers proceeded to speak to Adam Strong. As they spoke to him, they braced themselves for the unexpected. However, nothing could have prepared them for what Adam had to say.
They recall him putting his head down and making a comment almost instantaneously that the jig's up. It's a body. If you want the rest of her, she's in my freezer, and she's pretty defleshed.
Adam was immediately taken into custody while police began to search his apartment. It was nothing short of a house of horrors. Every inch was filled with filth, and an overwhelming smell of decay infused the air. In the bathroom, they found that Adam had removed the toilet while trying to address the blockage issue. However, it was in the bedroom where the most gruesome discovery awaited them. Inside a freezer, they came across the remains of a young woman, her head concealed within a plastic bag. The body was in a state of decomposition, just as Adam had described. On the neck of the remains was a tattoo with the phrase, "I live," the exact same one that Rori Hache had.
Rori had a distinct tattoo. She had the word "alive" tattooed on her neck. And when they looked through the freezer, they found a human head. And there was a tattoo clearly displayed. I knew right then, yeah, it's Rori.
Further DNA testing confirmed beyond any shadow of a doubt that the remains found in Adam Strong's apartment were that of Rori. There was no shortage of evidence of Rori's presence in the apartment. Her blood was on Adam's bedroom wall and ceiling, and bodily fluids belonging to him were found on her remains. Her running shoes were found wrapped in plastic and stained in blood. The police discovered that Adam had arranged a proper table with equipment as a makeshift autopsy station. Shivers went down their spines as they realized that was the place where Adam had dismembered his victim. During their search, police also found multiple explicit toys, restraining devices, knives, and an explosive device, which turned out to be a pipe bomb. Thankfully, it was disarmed before it could cause any danger. No one could figure out why it might be in Adam's possession.
Tonight allowed a bang in the heart of an Oshawa neighborhood, the controlled explosion of a suspicious package at the scene of a suspicious death investigation for Durham Regional Police.
Unfortunately, due to a lack of direct evidence that Adam had murdered Rori, police were unable to charge him with murder. Instead, they charged him with indignity to a body.
Know at that point what the cause of death was. To lay that charge, you need the grounds. The decision was made to continue our investigation to see where it took us down the road.
It was time for the investigation to have a closer look at this 45-year-old man's life. Not much was known about Adam Strong, but he moved into the McMillan rental apartment in early 2007. Over the years, Adam had worked as a film set security guard in Oshawa and a gas station employee at 2 different locations in Ajax. Those acquainted with Adam Strong labeled him as a weirdo with a cocky attitude who thought of himself as smarter than he was. He had a tendency for talking nonstop, never knowing how to shut up. One of his ex-girlfriends, whose name has been kept private, described him as abusive and controlling. Much like others, Adam's landlord, Eugenie Papadakis, also had unsettling experiences with him. In fact, in March 2017, following a house fire, she and her granddaughter went to inspect Strong's unit at the McMillan Drive home. They found the unit cluttered with what appeared to be garbage, old food, and other random items. Needless to say, the sight sickened them to the core.
I've never seen Adam taking the garbage out. Everything is here.
Knives by the bed.
Oh my God.
Detectives also learned that Adam showed a keen interest in BDSM practices. He went as far as posting a picture of handcuffs in his room, captioning it with the chilling phrase, "Home is where my handcuffs hang." Additionally, Adam was deeply engrossed in reviewing adult videos and books, which clearly indicated his fixation on explicit content. These revelations provided valuable insight into his psyche, shedding light on the dark and disturbing world that existed within his apartment. However, it wasn't enough to bring him down for murder, so detectives set their eyes on a confession. During the early morning hours of December 30th, 2017, Durham homicide detectives Darren Short and Hermano Dorrego sat down with Adam Strong for an interrogation. By this time, Adam had already contacted his lawyer. Detectives knew this was their only chance. His bail hearing was scheduled the next day, and after that, they wouldn't be able to interview him without a court order. The pressure was on to obtain crucial information from Strong before the opportunity slipped away.
You said to the officers, if you're looking for the rest of her, you'll find her in the freezer. My question to you is the person in that freezer, Rori?
I decline to answer that question.
Okay. You're saying you decline to answer it, but you're shaking your head this way. Does that mean anything?
No.
Okay. Any interest from you at all in telling us your side of things?
No.
Nothing?
When the detectives started the interrogation, they didn't know what to expect. At the very least, they expected that Adam would be nervous now that he was finally caught. However, he was calm, composed, and most of all, indifferent to the situation. However, the biggest challenge was extracting information related to Rori Hache. His stubbornness was perplexing, especially considering Adam's earlier confession about having human remains in his freezer.
I was told these things go on for like hours. Is that true? Again, it's true.
The detectives, well aware that time was running out, resorted to a different approach. They aimed at tapping into Adam's emotions, hoping to reach a part of him that might feel remorse or empathy for the victim and her loved ones.
We've been dealing with that family since September. Very traumatic, very emotional, having a tough time dealing with it. We're trying to bring closure to that family as best we can, but it's been a struggle up till now.
In an attempt to deflect the probing questions directed at him, Adam kept changing the subject, but his answers were nothing short of chilling.
Can I get no, not a Kleenex. Can I be on the table there?
Sure can.
Not be on the table, just...
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
When he started feeling the pressure, he would do certain things to relieve the pressure. He'd change the subject quickly.
Like, what do you think right now, Adam? Wish I was scuba diving. Yeah.
Like being in here, is there a weight off your shoulders right now? Did you feel like you're... None. No weight off your shoulders? It was just...
Can I get a refill, even from a tap on this?
Yeah.
Awesome.
He'll talk about any subject under the sun, except for the reason why he's sitting across from us. That's just the way Adam's wired.
I have movies from the library that need to be reviewed. I know that seems trivial. I know it does.
Very trivial right now, I can tell you.
Thank you.
That is the last thing on my mind right now.
While they'd gathered enough evidence to establish that Rori Hache had been in his apartment, Their ultimate objective was to uncover the truth about what had transpired and what had led to her tragic fate. Unfortunately, Adam Strong proved to be more than they bargained for. He remained resolutely tight-lipped in response to every question related to Rori.
How did you know Rori?
Sorry, I'm not saying anything.
Did you kill Rori?
Sorry, I'm not saying anything.
Is there other people we should be worried about? Is there other girls out there that we should be worried about that are missing? Just the one.
But would he be able to look directly at the picture of the poor girl and still show indifference?
Can I flip that over now?
No. I want you to look at that.
I did look at it.
Yeah, and it's going to stay there.
Okay.
All right?
No, I'm not going to look at it anymore.
No, you don't have to.
I'm not going to.
The reason we're showing these photographs, we're pulling on his decency as a human being that had little effect on him at all.
When playing on his conscience proved to be ineffective as a ploy, the detectives resorted to appealing to his greed as a last hope to gain his trust.
Oh, you can eat with me? Not let you alone, man. Appreciate that, man.
You're trying to build that relationship with him. I'm, treating you with respect. I'm making sure your needs are met. There's a social interaction that's been put in place now where it's just two people. I've got you a meal.
Okay.
You ever owned any guns or anything like that?
No.
No, not into guns.
No, I am.
Yeah, are you?
And I'm very proficient.
Yeah. You collect knives?
I wouldn't say collect,
Yeah.
but I do enjoy a knife.
How many knives do you have? Like those type of knives, like collector type?
I have that one and I have a sword.
As Adam appeared to be answering the questions, Detective Durego attempted to steer the conversation back to the murder investigation. Frustratingly, he reverted to his usual reluctant self.
The ex used to love it in there.
Rory's DNA, would it be on that?
No.
No. Okay, neither. I appreciate you.
Feel free to check.
As the interrogation continued over the next 2 hours, it became increasingly evident that they were going nowhere. Adam's refusal to divulge any relevant information left them with more questions than answers. With no breakthrough in sight, they reluctantly made the decision to end the interrogation.
Let's just shut it down now. We could have sat there for another 3 or 6 hours. I don't think we were going to get any different results.
Right, you know what? We'll walk back.
How Rori Hache crossed paths with Adam Strong remained shrouded in mystery. Fortunately for the detectives, Adam was not granted bail, further solidifying his stay in custody. Meanwhile, the Durham police kept the search at Adam's residence alive in their quest for evidence and clues. They also seized his boat and appealed to the public to come forward with information regarding Adam's boating trips on Lake Ontario. Rory's post-mortem report also provided a better insight. She had multiple injuries on her body, including skull fractures. The medical examiner couldn't determine exactly if these wounds were caused before or after her death. Forensic tests also suggested the presence of drugs in her system at the time of her death. Her body also bore signs that she was wearing some sort of restraining device. Inside the home, detectives found a bent hammer with Rory's DNA on it. The detectives believed it was the likely murder weapon. However, it wasn't the most significant find. Just when detectives thought they'd seen it all, another startling discovery was made. In July of 2017, 7 months after Adam Strong's apprehension, inside a kitchen drawer of his home, a specialty hunting knife was discovered.
That knife's only designed for one use and one use only. It's a knife used by hunters for gutting and skinning animals.
This knife was covered in human tissue. Shockingly, forensic analysis revealed that the DNA found on the knife did not match Rori. Instead, it belonged to another female named Candace Fitzpatrick.
Disturbing developments in the murder investigation of Rori Hache, whose partial remains were found inside the central Oshawa home late last year. Police today confirming that they have found the DNA belonging to a second young woman who went missing nearly a decade ago.
Born on February 3, 1989, little is known about Candace Fitzpatrick's early life. Candace's father, William Fitzpatrick, ended up divorcing her mother, whose name has not been made public. After the separation, William moved to Alberta, while Candace remained with her mother in Oshawa. Candace's life took a tumultuous turn, marked by an erratic lifestyle. She disappeared from home at one point, prompting her father to search for her in Oshawa. Upon her return, Candace expressed a desire to live alone. By the time Candace turned 19 in 2008, her life had spiraled into chaos. Just like Rori Hache, she was a troubled young woman struggling with drugs and resorting to selling herself to fund her addiction. Candace frequently vanished from home for days or even weeks at a time, but she always returned, until March of 2008, when her family last saw her. Growing increasingly concerned about her absence, Candace's father, William, embarked on an extensive search for his daughter across the province. He also created a Facebook missing persons group, garnering nearly 1,200 members. Surprisingly, Candace was not officially reported missing to the police until 2010, 2 years after she disappeared. William revealed that he'd spoken to the police multiple times in 2008 regarding Candace, but due to her habits and lifestyle, they'd not taken her disappearance seriously. After a decade of agonizing uncertainty and waiting, Candace Fitzpatrick's family finally received the devastating news they'd always feared. The undeniable resemblance between these two women went beyond just their troubled lives. Their physical appearances bore a striking similarity as well.
Both victims were of more of a petite build, longer, brown hair.
Almost a splitting image of each other.
Ironically, despite their disappearances occurring a decade apart, they both met the same tragic fate at the hands of the same person. It's heartbreaking to think that if Adam had not gone undetected for a decade after Candace's demise, Rori might still be alive today. Candace's remains were not located yet, and there was only one person who held the key to solving this haunting mystery. Investigators were able to get the prosecutors to drop the initial charges off of Adam Strong. Instead, this time he was charged with first-degree murder for both Rori Hache and Candace Fitzpatrick. This gave the detectives an opportunity to interrogate Adam one more time.
Dropping and then the newer charges was, I think, a calculated risk on their part, because the indignity of the body was essentially a slam dunk. There's no evidence to suggest or to prove that he premeditated killing the victim. There's no suggestion that it wasn't just, for example, an accident. That does put a lot of pressure on that interview, because this is essentially the one opportunity you're going to have to sit down with Strong and gather what you can gather. And if you don't, there's a very real risk that he is set free, essentially.
Realizing that the stakes were high, the Durham Police Department brought in Detective Paul Mitten, a highly skilled and experienced interrogator, known for his expertise in handling complex and challenging cases.
My preparation for the interview with Adam Strong actually began by watching his first interview. It was apparent to me that Adam Strong shied away from any direct questions.
I'm not saying anything, I'm sorry.
So I knew that wasn't going to be my approach.
How you doing?
Good, you?
Had better days.
Oh, I'm sure. Paul Mitten.
Adam Strong.
Call me Paul today.
All right, Paul.
On November 18th, 2018, 11 months after the first one, Adam Strong sat for another interrogation, and it was the most crucial one. To Detective Mitten's surprise, Adam voluntarily came forward with information regarding his treatment in jail.
I have been amazed at how well I have been treated. Other than a few staff members at the 8SAG.
And that's going to continue today.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
That's good. That's wonderful.
Detective Mitten saw it as a positive sign that Adam was at least willing to engage in conversation, even if he hadn't yet broached the subject of the case. Drawing from his knowledge of Adam's temperament gathered from the previous interview, he understood the importance of building a rapport and gaining his trust before delving into the sensitive details of the interrogation. So Detective Mitten was quick to oblige when Adam asked for food.
No fries.
Didn't see fries anyway.
Oh, it's that combo.
Oh, sorry.
That's the mail over it.
With a bridge of understanding between them now solidly in place, Detective Mitten sensed that it was the right time to start talking about the case.
How old was Rori? 18. Okay, how much of her body did you guys get back? Obviously the entire skeletal structure, right?
Well, we obviously, whatever was in the house.
Yes,
we
in the
got.
freezer.
Yes.
And how much of it were you able to pull out of the pipes?
Quite a bit. It was bad luck.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. They're like, you're stupid. I'm like, you kidding me?
Well.
That's an awesome way.
Yeah.
I just got greedy, that's
The chilling lack of remorse in Adam's demeanor as he discussed his actions would have left any other human being shocked and appalled. However, Detective Mitten knew better than to react to his words. Instead, he continued the interrogation.
You were saying? So the team gets put together, and like I said, last seen Rori August 30th. Okay. Torso pops up, unknown female. September 11th, team's put
Yeah,
together.
she said she knew in her bones that it was her daughter. I read that in an article.
In a bizarre twist, Adam Strong remained adamant in his denial that Rori was pregnant. He even admitted to holding her reproductive organs in his hands, further claiming that she was not carrying a child during her death. The fact that he was far more concerned about proving himself right than taking responsibility for his own actions further revealed a troubling aspect of his character. He was a man with absolutely no concern for human lives whatsoever.
She also swears, like, the mother's been in the news many times. Mm-hmm. It's not just my daughter, it's my unborn grandchild that was murdered too. And she's adamant.
She was not pregnant.
Her mom is, you know, I think part of the hate on it.
I don't want to go into how I know, but I know.
But, I mean, according to her mom, she was pregnant.
I couldn't be any more sure than someone who did an autopsy.
Okay.
She was not pregnant. I would bet my life. Not that that matters. Anyway.
Would you know what to look for? I wouldn't know what to look for.
I didn't see a baby. Okay. Done. Okay. Like, there's no way of getting around that I chopped her up. There's no way. Okay. And I understand. But I had to cut all that stuff up. I held her entire reproductive system in my hand.
Thank you for telling me that.
Okay.
In the process of proving his words, Adam had inadvertently blurted out a few things he didn't intend to say. This became a monumental moment in the history of the case, as it was the first time he had actually disclosed something that could implicate him in the murders. Unbelievably, throughout the rest of the interview, Adam left breadcrumbs of information, much to Mitten's delight as he witnessed it.
I said I would have dumped her in 600 feet of water and she would have never come up.
Okay.
Every time there was a little bit of information given to me, maybe even unknowingly by Adam Strong, inside I was giving myself a little fist pump, only because I thought we were advancing the case a little bit here.
8 hours into the interrogation, Detective Paul Mitten decided to change tactics slightly. He confronted Adam Strong with a compelling presentation of the evidence stacked against him.
Like, were you waiting for that to happen, the door knock?
I was like, am I going to get away with this? I'm like, probably not.
Yeah. Again, I would assume from the point the plumbing started to act up.
It was like, oh.
Were you sleeping that night, or were you, like, nonstop on your mind?
I slept.
So there was some photos of Rory's bruises, and I presented the photographs and asked Adam about them.
Obviously, searched the apartment and found some things in there that lead us to believe that we have what caused that injury.
Yeah?
Well,
in the apartment?
In the apartment.
Wow.
So, did that surprise you?
Yes.
At this point, the surprising aspect of this interrogation was not just Adam's intrigue about the presented evidence, but the degree of his excitement that seemed almost unbelievable. Mitten kept him engaged in the conversation.
So, the 24th is when you start this. You said Christmas Eve?
Yes.
Are you doing this while it's frozen, or partially defrosted?
Completely defrosted.
Okay. Now that would take several hours, wouldn't it?
No, not in a bathtub full of hot water.
Oh, okay. Like, within a couple hours?
I wouldn't wager. I had to fill the bathtub up a few times.
To keep the water hot?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I should really be talking about that, but ultimately you do have me on the... Yeah. There's no getting around that.
Yep. And so, like, this was all one piece, and then this was all one piece?
I couldn't... Yeah, really? Sorry, man. I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't important to me, man.
Okay.
I know that might sound cold and callous, but it just...
I just assume it would be like the 9/11.
No, not at all.
You just remember this because it's so, like, monumental.
I did not feel that way at all.
Adam was confident that the conversation between them was strictly limited to the dismemberment of the bodies. Little did he know that his indirect admissions and subtle revelations were providing the detectives with crucial inferences about the entire sequence of events surrounding the heinous crimes. After 10 hours, the interrogation came to an end when Paul Mitten felt that he had all the information he needed.
How come you got brought in? Are you just like a lead?
No, I you know what? I talked to people for a living.
Okay, that's
like,
it.
Just, yeah, I do a lot of interviews, that's all.
Like, if you never knew, like, you'd go and have a beer with me, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to blast.
Man, go get some sleep, dude.
Listen, I appreciate you sticking it out.
Well, I didn't really have a choice.
No, but...
I probably said more than I should have.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But that's okay.
I got nowhere to go other than back to the cell with a concrete slab. Horrible.
There was no clear confession where he said, this is how I killed so-and-so and this is how I killed so-and-so, but it was a series of inculpatory statements, and I think at the end of the day, I'm sure he wishes he hadn't said as much as he did.
On September 28, 2020, 12 years after Candace went missing and 3 years after Rori went missing, Adam Strong went on trial for both of these murders. Despite the evidence piled up against him, he pleaded not guilty to both charges. During the trial, the prosecution meticulously presented a wealth of evidence, including the chilling interrogation footage, to support their case against Adam Strong. The testimonies of 5 women who had been assaulted by him further added to the weight of the prosecution's claims. Though Adam did not disclose the details of Rori's death during the interrogation, the prosecution constructed their theories based on the available evidence. According to their account, Adam enticed Rori to his home with the promise of money for physical relations. Once inside, he restrained her in a disturbing BDSM-style contraption and savagely beat her with a hammer found in his home. Sadly, no one was living upstairs at that time, so no one could have heard her screams. Following her tragic death, he dismembered her lifeless body and disposed of the torso in the Oshawa Harbor. Cell phone data placed Adam in the area on September 4, 2017, a week before Rori's torso was found, adding to the mounting evidence against him. Similarly, the prosecution believed that Candace had suffered the same fate at Adam's hands, but at that point, they had not yet located her remains. The defense, however, denied Adam's involvement in Rori's murder, claiming that her death resulted from an overdose and Adam had simply tried to dispose of the body. As for Candace, the defense contended that there was insufficient evidence to prove she died in Adam's home. They also pointed out the limited size of the freezer, suggesting that it could not have accommodated the remains of 2 victims. Nonetheless, after carefully reviewing all the evidence, Judge Mr. Joseph DeLuca was firmly convinced of Adam Strong's involvement in the murders. He saw through the defense's theories and concluded that the evidence presented by the prosecution was compelling and incriminating. In the court, Adam tried to blame his actions on his troubled childhood. He claimed that he'd suffered a traumatic assault at the tender age of 4, an event that had left an indelible mark on his psyche. He was also said to have struggled to cope with the overwhelming emotions and trauma from his past, leading him to succumb to devilish thoughts. He even offered condolences to the victims' families, yet he didn't seem to mean a word. He exhibited an alarming level of indifference and lack of remorse for the lives he'd taken. The evidence presented during Adam Strong's trial made it clear that he was fully aware of the gravity of his actions and the consequences they carried. It was apparent that the man knew exactly what he was doing and had no qualms about it. In fact, he saw prison as a viable solution to his dire circumstances. Due to loneliness and financial distress, he was willing to trade his freedom for the basic necessities that prison could offer. According to Canadian law, an individual may be charged with first-degree murder under certain circumstances. These circumstances include premeditated murder, where the act was planned and deliberate, and cases involving police officers or prison workers, reflecting the severity of the offense. First-degree murder charges can also apply if the act occurs during the commission of other serious crimes, such as assault, kidnapping, terrorism, theft, and similar offenses. However, in certain situations, a murder charge may be reduced to manslaughter if it can be demonstrated that the individual acted in the heat of passion caused by sudden provocation. It was determined that Rori Hache died during an assault, so Adam Strong was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was convicted of manslaughter regarding the death of Candace Fitzpatrick.
Judge found that Strong murdered Rori Hache while committing a sexual act and died of blunt force trauma to the head. But because Candace's body was never recovered, while it was possible she met the same fate, he was not satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that she was murdered and found him guilty of the lesser charge.
In May 2021, Adam Strong was handed a life sentence for his first-degree murder conviction in the killing of Rori Hache. Additionally, he received an 18-year prison term to be served concurrently for killing Candace Fitzpatrick. This was the highest possible sentence permissible within the country's legal framework. Moments before Adam Strong was taken into prison in handcuffs, the judge directly addressed him with these powerful words: "Your moment before us is done. From here, you'll go to prison. You will never be seen in public again. In time, you will be forgotten. You will neither be famous nor infamous. You will simply be gone." The sentencing marked the end of a long and painful journey for the families of both victims, and they were seen celebrating outside the courtroom after the sentencing hearing.
He addressed Adam. He let Adam know on no uncertain terms what he did was wrong, and he's being punished for it.
I think the judge did an incredible job of bringing this man to his knees.
Yeah.
I feel amazing. Today we let them rest. Today this monster's off our street, and he's no longer a part of our day.
Though nothing could bring back their loved ones, the families felt that justice was served. In July 2021, Strong provided crucial information regarding the whereabouts of Candace Fitzpatrick's remains. Acting on this tip-off, on November 4, 2021, he accompanied the police to a general area near Secreto Drive and Britannia Avenue East in Oshawa, where he claimed to have buried the body. Subsequently, on November 8th, the authorities were able to locate the remains. Following the forensic examination, the remains were positively identified as those of Candace Fitzpatrick on November 13, 2021. The conclusive identification was announced through a press conference on February 16, 2022. Candace's father, William, was still in disbelief.
Did you ever think you'd see this day?
No. Never thought I'd see her remains, ever.
The reason behind Adam Strong's sudden change of heart remains a mystery, but speculation suggests that he may have been seeking fame and recognition for his actions. Despite the tragic circumstances that brought them together, the Hache and Fitzpatrick families have remained supportive of one another and are finding strength and healing as they navigate through the difficult aftermath of these horrific events. The cases of Rori Hache and Candace Fitzpatrick are solved, but police suspect that Adam Strong might have been involved in the deaths of other women. In June 2022, the police found some clothing evidence in Adam's apartment. However, they've not divulged specific details about this evidence, keeping it confidential as they continue their investigation. This story is undeniably tragic and profoundly disturbing. The most unsettling aspect is that Adam Strong managed to remain completely off the police's radar throughout his heinous acts. He operated unnoticed, hidden in plain sight. Neighbors lived around him, extended greetings, offering help, and inviting him to social gatherings, completely oblivious to the sinister truth that lurked within him. The chance that this case was ultimately solved due to a twist of fate is absolutely terrifying. One can't help but wonder if there were any red flags that could have been recognized earlier. Ellen Greenberg, a 27-year-old woman from Philadelphia, had dreams of becoming a teacher. Her life was filled with joy, especially with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. They were eagerly planning their wedding in August 2011.
She was engaged to be married, so we were planning a wedding.
However, their dreams were shattered on January 26, 2011, when Sam placed a fateful 911 call from their apartment.
My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere. Please come, help, now.
Willing to do CPR with me over the phone so they can...
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off.
Oh, my God. Allie, please. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
She stabbed herself, he said. How would he know that? That's fascinating.
What's truly shocking is that Ellen had a total of 20 stab wounds on her body. Out of these, 10 were on the back of her neck, 1 on her head, 1 on her abdomen, and 8 on her chest. It's extremely unlikely that a person could have inflicted these wounds on themselves, especially those on the back of the neck.
I measured the arm length and the knife, and you can't get it back.
In this neuropathologist's best determination, Ellen wasn't alive when she was stabbed.
Initially, the reports claimed that Ellen had taken her own life, but this statement was also changed multiple times in the reports about Ellen's case. The big question is, could Ellen have given herself so many stab wounds? Ellen's parents firmly believed that her death was a homicide, not what the police initially said.
Corroborates what we've always thought. This was not a suicide. This was a vicious homicide.
This case became incredibly famous, drawing the attention of numerous pathologists and doctors who closely examined the mysterious death of Ellen. What follows will leave you thinking about everything again.
She loved life, she loved people, and bringing people together.
Did she truly have the strength to inflict such harm on herself? To find answers to these questions, let's dive into the details of this perplexing case. It all started on a stormy evening in Philadelphia back on January 26, 2011, when Ellen and Sam decided to head home early to escape the nasty weather. Sam, feeling energetic, headed down to the gym of their building, leaving Ellen to whip up a fruit salad in their cozy apartment. Little did they know, this ordinary evening was about to take a peculiar turn. After a mere 45 minutes, Sam returned back, only to discover the door was stubbornly locked from the inside. Puzzled, he began knocking, calling, and even texting Ellen, but an eerie silence was all that greeted his efforts. With no other choice left, Sam made a desperate decision and he broke down the locked door and entered their apartment. What he encountered was a chilling nightmare. There, in a horrifying scene, lay Ellen's lifeless body, surrounded by a gruesome pool of blood and her body bearing extensive wounds. The truly baffling part was there were no signs of a struggle or forced entry, and nobody had heard a thing. No screams, no disturbances. The woman who'd been happily preparing her salad just moments ago was now tragically lifeless. You might be wondering, what on earth transpired in those mysterious 45 minutes? Well, to uncover the full story, we need to turn back the clock to June 23, 1983, the day when Ellen Rae Greenberg, also known as Ellie, came into this world in the heart of New York City. Ellen was the cherished only child of Joshua, a periodontist, and Sandra, a dental hygienist. From a young age, she displayed a delightful mix of girlish charm and athletic prowess. She embraced all the typical girly activities, but also had a spirited athletic side. Ellen's heart overflowed with kindness and nurturing qualities, which naturally led her to a career in teaching. Those who knew her often marveled at her boundless energy and the way she tackled every task with an infectious smile. Growing up, she shared a deep and loving bond with her parents, Joshua and Sandra. As the sole focus of their attention, she enjoyed a wonderfully close and cherished relationship with them. At the age of 27, Ellen had found her calling as a teacher. She embarked on her educational journey, becoming a dedicated first-grade teacher at Juniata Park Academy in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But she didn't stop there. Ellen was a rising star in the education world. She proudly stood as one of the founding teachers at the school and was even a trusted member of the panel responsible for selecting new staff members. It was clear that Ellen possessed a remarkable go-getter spirit, a sense of maturity, and responsibility that had been with her since her early years. Over the past 4 years, Ellen had wholeheartedly embraced her role as a teacher, and her young students absolutely adored her. Notably, Michelle Stallone, a guidance counselor hired by the school, had the privilege of spending a year teaching alongside Ellen in the same classroom. Ellen's passion for teaching left an indelible mark on all who crossed her path. Michelle said, "Those little kids loved her. The day started and ended with hugs when they left. If she was absent, they didn't perform well. They just weren't happy without her." It was during this time that she crossed paths with Samuel Goldberg, a producer at NBC, who brought a touch of the glamorous TV industry into her life. Over nearly 3 years, their relationship blossomed, and Sam's charisma and successful career drew Ellen closer to him. Their love story blossomed in a decision to get engaged, a moment of pure excitement, especially for Ellen, who was over the moon with happiness. It felt like a dream come true, a journey to marry the man of her dreams, and they were both thrilled about the road ahead. Now, during this series of events, the security guard couldn't help but notice something peculiar. Sam was wearing Timberland-style boots, the kind typically not worn for going to the gym. Sam's actions took a chilling turn when he returned to the apartment and broke down the door. Inside, he confronted the devastating shock of his life. Ellen's lifeless body lay in a gruesome pool of blood on the kitchen floor. As if this horrifying sight weren't enough, Ellen also bore extensive wounds all over her body. Overwhelmed by confusion and shock, at around 6:30 p.m., Sam made the crucial decision to dial 911 for help. Now, let's listen to this 911 call carefully, as it holds some potential answers to some of the most baffling questions surrounding Ellen's tragic death, which remained unanswered.
Help, I need a fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please come. Help. Now. Oh, no. Oh, no. It's an apartment.
What apartment number?
603.
Apartment 603.
603. Please hurry, please.
Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No, sir, you have to calm yourself down in order to get you some help.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. I can't see anything. There's nothing broken. She's bleeding. Ellie.
You don't know where she's bleeding from? Can't tell where the blood's coming from?
I think her head. I think she hit her head, But it's everywhere.
Okay, sir,
it's everywhere.
You think she might have fallen? Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple.
Okay, hold on for rescue for her. Stay on the phone.
In the midst of that critical 911 call, Sam described that there was blood everywhere. However, he also mentioned that Ellen had merely hit her head. What's noteworthy here is that Sam was close enough to notice any discoloration on her face, such as turning purple. This detail's vital because if there's anything else on her body, or a potential murder weapon, he would likely have seen it clearly. It's an essential detail to remember as we delve further into the unfolding call.
I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now just on the floor with blood. She's not responding.
It's indeed a heartbreaking situation to walk into your home and discover the person you love lifeless. Your natural instinct is to do everything in your power to try and save them, not to think about providing an alibi. It's puzzling why, at that moment, Sam seemed more concerned about offering an alibi to the police rather than urgently requesting help for his unresponsive fiancée lying on the floor. Perhaps he was emotionally overwhelmed or detached from the severity of the situation, as it's unusual for someone to prioritize their alibi over seeking immediate assistance for a loved one in distress.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back. So I bring her.
Look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat on her...
God.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay.
Sam's behavior during that 911 call is indeed puzzling. He questioned whether he had to perform CPR, which is a bit unusual considering it's often the first instinct when trying to save someone. The 911 operator repeatedly urged Sam to administer CPR, emphasizing the importance of checking Ellen's chest. However, it seemed like Sam might have been hesitant or unprepared to take action. In a typical situation, seeing a loved one covered in blood on the floor would prompt an immediate response, including turning them over and trying everything to save their life. But in this case, Ellen still remained on her back, and Sam appeared confused or perhaps even fearful about turning her over and looking at her chest.
To get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off.
Oh, shit.
Okay? You need to kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you
Okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh, no. Her knife's sticking out.
Her what?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Sam suddenly noticed a knife lodged in Ellen's chest. What makes this revelation even more strange is that he didn't seem to have seen it until that moment. It's essential to revisit the call and pay close attention to Sam's reaction when he made this shocking discovery.
Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
Does this reaction seem really genuine or authentic to you? The way Sam reacted to the discovery of the knife raises serious suspicions. It doesn't appear to be a genuinely shocked response. Instead, it almost sounds like he might have been aware of the knife's presence and was trying to give a staged reaction. His choice of words, suggesting that Ellen had stabbed herself rather than someone else stabbing her, is indeed curious, especially considering the extensive injuries she had. It seems highly unlikely that Ellen, with those severe wounds, would have had the energy to inflict them upon herself multiple times. Another oddity is that Ellen was wearing a sweatshirt, and to perform CPR, Sam would have needed to unzip it. It's perplexing that he didn't notice the large kitchen knife which was sticking out of Ellen's chest until he unzipped her sweatshirt. The fact that the knife was hidden inside the sweatshirt raises questions. Sam's reactions appear forced, and his attempt to convince others that he was genuinely shocked doesn't quite align with the casual tone he adopted during this harrowing situation.
Okay, so I just let her here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, so what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Was it her chest or what area?
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay.
How old is she?
She's 27.
27, and there's no sign of life at all.
No, please don't be. Ellie, she's not. Her arm, her hands are still warm. I don't know if that means, but there's blood everywhere. I mean.
I know, but you can't. And the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
Okay.
It looks it's a long knife.
Don't touch anything, okay?
I'm not touching anything. I can't believe this, though.
So wait, it was just you there with her?
We're the only ones here. I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched. Like it was, it wasn't like it was, it was like locked from the inside, and I'm yelling, so I'm
was
yelling.
Your house broken into?
No.
So there's no sign of a break-in?
No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here because I had to break the latch, but to get in.
Okay, 4601 Flat Rock, and this is a house, right?
It's an apartment, Flat Rock, apartment 603.
Okay, that'll help. Apartment 603.
Oh my God. All right, thank you.
You're absolutely right. People react differently in moments of extreme trauma. But Sam's response was indeed highly peculiar, leaving many questions unanswered. Instead of exhibiting the expected panic or distress, he remained surprisingly calm and conversational, which doesn't align with the usual reactions you'd anticipate in such a distressing situation. It's these unusual reactions that added an extra layer of mystery to the whole ordeal. Following Sam's 911 call, the initial responders who came to the crime scene first were 2 fire department members, and shortly after, a lieutenant and an EMS officer arrived. The lieutenant advised them to wait for the uniformed police to come. However, the EMS officer didn't follow this directive and headed directly to the apartment, while Sam waited in the hallway. Around 6:40 p.m., the EMS officer officially declared Ellen's unfortunate passing. But the twist was before the uniformed police arrived, the EMS officer quickly departed from the scene. However, they did mention to the lieutenant that they should return to the station because they might be interviewed in a homicide case. The puzzling part was that, despite being the first to arrive, pronouncing Ellen's condition, and witnessing the situation, the EMS officer was never actually interviewed by law enforcement. This omission in the investigation was a significant oversight, as their perspective could have shed light on key details and potentially offered a deeper understanding of the situation surrounding Ellen's tragic death. So, when the uniformed police entered the apartment, they discovered a haunting scene. Ellen's lifeless body was seated on the kitchen floor, with her head and a portion of her upper body and shoulders leaning against the lower half of the kitchen cabinets. A long kitchen knife was embedded in the left side of her chest through her clothing, and several other kitchen knives were found in the sink, and a knife block had toppled over on the counter nearby. Interestingly, throughout the entire apartment, there were no signs of a struggle, and everything remained neatly in its place, as if undisturbed. The investigation took a significant turn when an investigator from the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office arrived to examine Ellen's body and delved into the perplexing circumstances responsible for her demise. As he examined Ellen's lifeless form, he made some important observations. Near her body lay a pair of glasses, a hair scrunchie adorned her wrist, and her left hand clutched a pristine white towel that remained entirely unstained by blood. His examination of the body revealed a shocking revelation. There were a total of 20 stab wounds on Ellen's body, and the chest wound with the knife was just one of these 20. These horrific injuries were found across her head, neck, back, and torso. It was a chilling discovery, as it seemed highly improbable for someone to have 20 self-inflicted stab wounds. According to the mystery, there were 11 bruises on Ellen's body in various stages of healing, spanning her right arm, right leg, and abdomen. With these puzzling details in mind, the police embarked on an intense investigation of the crime scene, attempting to unravel the events that could have occurred in those 45 minutes when Ellen's fiancé was downstairs working out. The initial theories the police explored led to more questions than answers. They first considered the possibility of an intruder breaking into the apartment and harming Ellen. However, upon close examination, it became evident that there were no signs of forced entry into their apartment. Also, their unit was in a 6-story complex building and could be accessed either through the front door or the exterior balcony. But a significant clue lay in the snow outside because it had been a snowy day and there was a thick layer of fresh snow on the ground outside. Surprisingly, there were no footprints on the snow, and the snow's pristine condition indicated that no one had entered from the exterior balcony. Moreover, there was also no evidence of a robbery found, as valuables like Ellen's jewelry and laptops were still present in the apartment. Even a thorough search of the house turned up no death note or any indication that Ellen might have taken her own life. The investigators left no stone unturned, and they interviewed all the building staff, neighbors, and anyone who might have seen or heard anything unusual. Yet no one had noticed anything out of the ordinary, and there were no reports of strangers entering the apartment. What's even more puzzling was that, upon examination, no DNA other than Ellen's was found in the house. However, the theory of homicide gained more strength due to the gruesome details of the wounds on Ellen's body. Ellen had suffered a staggering 20 stab wounds, 8 in the chest, 1 in her stomach, 1 on the top of her head that went through skull and scalp, and a shocking 10 at the back of her head. It was nearly impossible for someone to remain conscious for such an extended period and have the strength to inflict 20 stab wounds to themselves, which was only deepening the mystery surrounding her death. So now, with the investigation shifting towards the possibility of homicide, the first suspicion naturally fell upon Ellen's fiancé, Sam. He'd been the last person to see Ellen alive and also had easy access to their apartment. Sam was even led out of the building in handcuffs and brought to the district headquarters for questioning. However, it's worth noting that throughout that night and during the subsequent investigation, Sam cooperated fully with the police. He didn't assert any privileges and never refused to speak with the authorities. So after a relatively brief interrogation, Sam was eventually released and cleared of any suspicions. But what raised eyebrows was the veil of secrecy around the investigation. The experts and private detectives who were brought in to assist were denied access to vital police reports, including details of Sam's interview. Sam's initial handcuffing made it clear that the police had their suspicions, but what transpired in that interview room remained a well-guarded secret. As time went on, it became evident that the investigation into Ellen's case was taking an unexpected twist. Initially assumed to be a homicide scene, the handling of the case didn't align with what you'd typically expect in a murder investigation. On January 27, 2011, Melissa Ware, the building manager of Venice Lofts Apartments, made an intriguing call to the police. She relayed that Sam's uncle, James Schwartzman, had reached out with an unusual request. James wanted to gain access to the apartment to retrieve personal belongings of Sam for use at Ellen's funeral, which was scheduled for the following day, January 28, 2011, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So Melissa reached out to the police department to inquire whether it was permissible to allow someone into the apartment. Given that it was still considered a crime scene, and less than 24 hours had passed since Ellen's tragic death, one might expect restrictions. However, to her shock, she was told that there was no specific restrictions about entering the apartment. Melissa pressed further, expressing concerns about the lingering bloodstains that were still present in the apartment. However, the police response was surprising. They stated that they bore no responsibility for cleanup. Instead, they directed her to contact a third party, a crime scene cleanup company, and even provided her with their contact information. So without delay, Melissa got in touch with the cleanup company to make arrangements for them to address the situation in Ellen's apartment. The mystery surrounding the case took yet another unexpected turn. After the cleanup was completed, Melissa contacted Uncle James and informed him that he could come to the apartment to retrieve what he needed. So when Uncle James arrived, he selected one of Sam's suits for the funeral, which was expected. However, the surprise came when he decided to take Ellen's laptop and phone along with him. This raised suspicion, as it was unconventional for personal items of the victim to be removed, especially considering they might contain potential evidence. The situation had become increasingly mysterious, and it seemed like law enforcement wasn't taking significant steps to investigate or address the puzzling elements at play. Now, the same day, on January 27, 2011, Ellen's autopsy was performed, and it unveiled a harrowing picture that Ellen had suffered 8 separate chest stab wounds, with varying depths ranging from 0.2 centimeters to a staggering 10 centimeters. Her abdomen bore a 6 centimeter deep puncture and a 6.5 centimeter long gash marred her scalp. To make matters worse, her neck showed signs of extreme violence, with 10 individual stab wounds. These neck wounds ranged in depth from 0.2 centimeters to a staggering 7 centimeters, with one of them even penetrating nerves and the brain. Do you really think that a person can make such deep wounds on her body all by herself? Now, medically, these injuries alone would have caused severe pain, cranial nerve dysfunction, and traumatic brain signs and symptoms, including numbness, tingling, and loss of consciousness. Adding to the puzzle, Dr. Marlon Osborne also noted numerous unexplained bruises on Ellen's upper and lower extremities, all in different stages of healing. This raised concerns because it suggested a pattern of recurring injury over several weeks or months, in which either Ellen was bruising herself or someone else was bruising her regularly, casting a dark shadow over the case. In cases like Ellen's, where multiple stabbings occur on the back of her neck, it's typical to bring in a neuropathologist to determine if the spinal cord remained intact or not. This distinction is crucial, as it could answer the question of whether Ellen could have physically carried on with the act. If her spinal cord was damaged or severed, it would render her physically incapacitated yet aware of her surroundings, and this scenario strongly points towards a homicide. Now, the details became even more perplexing when considering that if Ellen's spinal cord remained intact, she theoretically could have moved physically. However, the implausible part was that she would have had to give herself 10 stab wounds on the back of the neck, each in different directions. This scenario seemed incredibly unlikely. Despite all the circumstantial evidence pointing towards homicide, Dr. Lucy Adams' report controversially asserted that Ellen's spinal cord was intact, leaving the possibility that she might have been able to self-inflict these wounds. Things took a dramatic turn when Dr. Osborne, the original medical examiner, got wind of these unusual findings. He couldn't shake off the oddities in the case and decided to take a closer look. Upon re-examination, he made a startling discovery. So this time, in the initial autopsy report of Ellen dated January 27, 2011, the medical examiner unequivocally stated that Ellen's cause of death was homicide, confirming that she had indeed been killed. Now, the case of Ellen had turned into a criminal investigation, but the police faced a major problem. They had essentially abandoned the crime scene, and the entire apartment had been thoroughly cleaned with their permission, even before the autopsy reports were available. This left them with very little to investigate, but to prepare the essential affidavits and documents on January 28, 2011, they went back to the apartment, hoping for some clues. But there wasn't a single drop of blood left in the apartment. So now, in an effort to make it seem like they were really reinvestigating the case, the police started delving into Ellen's background, hoping to find some crucial information that could help them cover up their earlier mistakes. It didn't take them long to discover that Ellen had been dealing with anxiety and had been seeing Dr. Doerman for counseling. Soon they reached out to Dr. Doerman, who explained that Ellen had been struggling with severe anxiety for about 2 months. She believed that work-related pressures had overwhelmed Ellen, contributing to her anxiety. Ellen also confided in Dr. Doerman about the challenges at her workplace. She mentioned that the changes in school district regulations and difficulties with a few students were actually causing her anxiety. It's important to note that while Ellen was experiencing work-related stress and anxiety, it was at a relatively normal level. She never expressed any intention of taking her life, and her struggles didn't suggest a scenario where she'd harm herself with multiple stab wounds. Dr. Doerman's insight into Ellen's life showed that she had a positive view of her relationship with Sam and was eagerly looking forward to their marriage. Despite her anxiety, Ellen didn't express any negativity about her relationship, and she always had a smile on her face when discussing it. To address her anxiety, Dr. Doerman initially prescribed Zoloft to Ellen and later switched to a low dose of Xanax. When these medications didn't yield the desired results, Ellen was prescribed Ambien and Klonopin to aid her in sleeping.
The psychiatrist's notes say not suicidal.
These medications were intended to help her cope with her anxiety, not to suggest that she was on the verge of hurting herself. But what was shocking was that the law enforcement focused on Ellen's anxiety as a key factor to support their theory that she could have harmed herself in such a violent way on that tragic evening. They believed her anxiety escalated to an extreme level, leading her to take a knife and inflict these severe wounds on herself. However, many questions still remain unanswered about this conclusion. The twists in Ellen's case didn't stop there. On February 3, 2011, the Philadelphia police reversed Dr. Osborne's initial ruling of homicide and stated that Ellen's death was not officially ruled a homicide, but was still considered suspicious. Then, on February 18, 2011, they made an even more surprising declaration, officially stating that Ellen Greenberg had taken her own life. Dr. Osborne's report was also changed, no longer classifying her death as a homicide. This shift left many people scratching their heads and wondering what really happened to Ellen. The announcement left Ellen's parents in utter shock, as it seemed impossible to them that their happy and content daughter would take her own life. It raised so many baffling questions. Why would she do it? Why would she prepare a fruit salad with happiness one moment and then start stabbing? What transpired during those mysterious 45 minutes? These questions haunted Ellen's parents for years, and they remained in mourning, still unaware of the truth behind their beloved daughter's tragic death. After months of reflection and navigating the difficult journey of grief, Ellen's parents resolved to seek justice for their daughter. Faced with the denial of access to crucial information, they took matters into their own hands.
The way the law is written, I believe, in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, if, number one, there has to be a crime for the police to hold back the records. It's not a crime.
They purchased Ellen's autopsy reports, which isn't the usual procedure, but was necessary due to their difficulties in obtaining them through regular means. Additionally, they acquired autopsy and crime scene photos, and in 2012, they shared these materials with renowned forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht for a fresh perspective. His examination yielded some intriguing findings. Dr. Wecht pointed out that multiple wounds are exceedingly rare. Methods for harming oneself have evolved over time, with options like drugs, hanging, or gunshot being more common. Cutting the throat or lower arms is usually linked to taking one's own life, but stab wounds to the back are unusual for such cases. In cases of murder, the assailant typically inflicts multiple stab wounds to various parts like the side, back, and stomach. In contrast, cases where people take their own lives usually involve additional cuts on the lower arms or tentative stabbings to test the pain or gather courage. Here's the key. Self-inflicted stab wounds are usually singular, often to the chest. However, multiple stab wounds on Ellen's back, upper neck, and lower head were an anomaly. Not only were there many of them, but they also had different directions, some going from left to right, others running vertically, and even some horizontally. This cast serious doubt on the idea of her taking her own life. So Dr. Cyril Wecht's conclusion spoke loudly. He stated, "Based upon a reasonable degree of medical certainty, it's my professional opinion that the manner of death of Ellen was strongly suspicious of homicide." However, Ellen's parents wanted another expert's perspective, so they reached out to another forensic pathologist specialist, Dr. Wayne K. Ross, who meticulously reviewed all the essential details surrounding Ellen's case. Dr. Wayne didn't just confirm that Ellen's death was a homicide. He also made a shocking discovery. While examining the crime scene photos and autopsy report, he found compelling evidence of strangulation. He described a mark on the front of Ellen's neck consistent with a fingernail mark, and multiple bruises under the neck and on the neck's right side. These patterns were in line with manual strangulation, which was a disturbing revelation, as Ellen definitely wasn't capable of doing that herself. But there was more. Dr. Wayne also noted something peculiar about the spinal cord, so he decided to take a closer look at it and re-examine it, which was stored at the medical examiner's office. After carefully examining Ellen's spinal cord, Dr. Wayne found that her spinal cord had indeed been penetrated and damaged, making it highly unlikely that she could have inflicted additional stab wounds. Furthermore, Ellen had a significant wound at the base of her skull, which extended deep into her brain. This specific injury resulted from an upward strike to the base of her skull, and it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, for Ellen to have inflicted such a wound on herself. Dr. Wayne's investigation didn't stop there. He also presented compelling evidence that more than one knife had been used to stab Ellen. One of the knives had a serrated blade, similar to the one found in her body, while the other had a smooth blade. This was further supported by the autopsy findings, which revealed that some of her wounds had serrated edges, while others were smoother. If multiple knives were involved, it became increasingly implausible that Ellen could have taken her own life by stabbing herself with one knife, then miraculously switching to a different knife, cleaning it of blood, and stabbing again. After years of ongoing discussions and doubts surrounding Ellen's case, a significant turning point occurred in October 2019. Ellen's parents took legal action by filing a civil suit against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and the pathologist Marlon Osborne, who had conducted Ellen's autopsy in 2011. Their primary objective was to challenge the initial determination of Ellen taking her own life and advocate for a change to classify Ellen's case as a potential homicide or undetermined. This was a pivotal step because if her death remained labeled as her taking her own life, it might lead to the case being closed without further investigation. For this, the court brought in a specialized pathologist to re-examine all the details of Ellen's case, including the autopsy reports. This expert was tasked with determining the real circumstances surrounding Ellen's death, which was crucial in uncovering the actual cause. To support this thorough investigation, they enlisted the assistance of Detective Scott Eelman, an expert in crime scene reconstruction, evidence processing, and management. Detective Eelman carefully examined the photographs taken at the scene, and he noticed something rather intriguing. The images revealed an interesting detail: a stream of blood running horizontally across Ellen's cheek, starting from the side of her nose and heading towards her left ear. What made this observation significant was that Ellen's body was discovered in an upright, slumped forward position. According to the initial police account, Ellen had supposedly stabbed herself while standing and then slid to the floor. However, this peculiar blood flow pattern didn't quite align with that scenario. After this, Eelman made a rather compelling point, stating, "The blood flow path defies gravity. You don't need to be a pathologist to appreciate that. Either she moved herself or someone moved her." He didn't stop there. Eelman honed in on this issue of blood flow in his report. The crime scene photos depicted Ellen's position in the kitchen. She was found slumped in the corner, with her back against the kitchen cabinet. Her feet and arms were stretched out, her head slightly tilted forward and to the right, and her chin resting against her right shoulder and her right temple against the corner cabinet. This positioning raised questions about the story told by the initial investigation. Eelman's report made it abundantly clear that the bloodstains on Ellen's face didn't match the position in which she was discovered. There was a peculiar blood flow pattern, diagonally across her forehead from right to left, ending at her right eyebrow. This pattern defied gravity and suggested that her head had been tilted in various directions, slightly backward and to the left. It strongly indicated that Ellen's body had been moved multiple times after she was stabbed. This revelation cast doubt on the idea that Ellen could have moved so much on her own. There are some critical details to consider here. First, Sam mentioned during the 911 call that he found Ellen's body lying on the floor with her back down. But when the police arrived, her position had inexplicably changed, and she was seated, leaning against the kitchen cabinet. Furthermore, a neuropathologist, Dr. Lindsay Emery, provided vital information that left little doubt about the true nature of Ellen's death. She stated that there was no evidence of hemorrhaging in the spinal cord, which strongly indicated that Ellen was not in control of her own death, but in fact was killed.
Have you ever been deposed before?
Yes.
Now, this neuropathologist's best determination, Ellen wasn't alive when she was stabbed.
What's significant here is that there's no hemorrhage.
And in your experience, no hemorrhage can equate to the person having been deceased at the time of the administration of the trauma.
Yeah, I mean, in general, no hemorrhage means no pulse.
People without pulses do not stab themselves repeatedly. So that by itself establishes suicide is absolutely impossible in this case.
Corroborates what we've always thought. This was a vicious homicide.
It was increasingly evident that Ellen did not stab and that someone else was present in the apartment with her. This mysterious intruder likely attacked her from behind while she was making her fruit salad. He initiated the assault by strangling her and then proceeded to stab her 20 times, possibly to mislead investigators into considering she took her own life instead of murder. However, all the evidence and expert reports are now pointing firmly towards homicide as the true case of Ellen's tragic death. In the last piece of evidence in 2021, Ellen's parents brought forth a 3D anatomical recreation of Ellen's wounds created by BioMX Consulting in Norfolk, Virginia. This remarkable recreation provides a detailed representation of the size, depth, and angle of each of the wounds on Ellen's body. They used a technology called photogrammetry to recreate Ellen's anatomical and physiological features. This detailed recreation vividly shows how it would have been impossible for Ellen to stab multiple times in the back of her neck. All the evidence and expert reports strongly suggest that Ellen's death was a homicide, and it calls for a thorough investigation to uncover what truly happened on that fateful evening of January 26, 2011. But in a surprising turn of events, the Attorney General's office decided to close the case in February 2022, insisting that her taking her own life somehow made sense despite the overwhelming evidence pointing in the direction of homicide. No doubt this decision brought a lot of shock not only to Ellen's parents, but also to the whole community and the pathologists who with determination examined all of Ellen's reports. Now the hope for justice lies in the hands of Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania's Attorney General, who's also running for the state's governor. He has the power to unlock the door that may lead to justice for Ellen and her grieving family. The entire community, along with Ellen's family, is eagerly awaiting for this case to be reopened. A thorough investigation is expected to unveil shocking truths and reveal what really transpired on that tragic evening. Rest assured, we'll be keeping a close watch on this case, and any new developments regarding Ellen's death will be shared with you as they unfold. Now, before we wrap up, let's dive into some interesting aspects of Ellen's case. One of the initial mysteries is the apartment's internal door latch. The apartment was not just locked from the inside, but the security lock was also firmly in place. This detail is quite crucial because it's the sole entry point into the apartment. To make it even more mysterious, there were no footprints or signs in the snowy balcony area outside, indicating that no one had entered from there. Sam claimed that he forcefully entered the apartment by breaking through the door, all while the lock was securely engaged. Now, if that had really happened, you'd expect to see some damage, right? Perhaps the screws on the lock coming loose, or some signs of force on the door. But in a surprising twist, the lock remained completely intact, showing no damage or disturbance. It's almost like the lock had a magic shield to protect it. To understand this peculiar situation better, let's watch a visual representation that might shed some light on how Sam would have broken the door and why the lock should have shown signs of it.
I just didn't want to ruin our door and door frame, so I'm going to go ahead and try to break in, and Jackson, let's see what happens when we do that.
All right, you're good.
Okay, you good? Mm-hmm. All right, so according to his statement, I guess he could open up this, right? It was this that was locking him out. So he would have been able to get the door open this far. So I'm going to try to put my shoulder into this and see what happens, and then see if my hypothesis is correct. I've never done this. I hope Hope it doesn't hurt. Here we go. Ready?
Wow. Exactly. As we've just seen, the lock remained unscathed, while the door was claimed to be forcefully broken, suggests something peculiar. If the door was truly broken from the outside with such force, the lock should have borne the brunt of it and shown signs of damage. However, it appeared more like the lock was pulled away slightly from the door. It's as if someone from inside the apartment used a tool, like a screwdriver, to manipulate the lock. You'd think such force would have caused the door frame to come off the wall, but in Ellen's case, it remained strangely intact. So now let's talk about the most important part of the question that baffles everyone. How could Ellen have inflicted those 20 stab wounds on herself? Among them, the 10 on the back of her neck have been the focal point of contention. It's a puzzle that even expert pathologists have scrutinized, and their findings indicate it was highly improbable for her to accomplish. To unravel this, let's turn to a visual representation that will shed light on why this seems nearly impossible for Ellen to have done on her own.
So, go ahead and grab that. But it can't be up like that. It has to be like that.
Okay.
But you're holding the blade, so
It
move
needs to be back.
Yeah. Okay. And
And it has to be up
that's
here.
no, it's upward facing. So okay, so now you know kind of where it is.
Okay.
You think you can stab yourself like that?
Okay, can you tell by my voice, this is a huge effort.
You're really, how much pressure can you put on yourself?
From that angle?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, you can stop.
When you look at the angles of those stab wounds on Ellen, it becomes clear that these were extremely awkward positions for someone to self-inflict them. Common sense tells us that if someone wanted to harm themselves, they'd likely choose a position that feels more natural. In the visual representation, you can see that if Ellen was truly stabbing, the knife's angle would be top down, but the actual wounds tell a different story. They appear more like direct stabs that someone standing behind her might have inflicted. The pieces of this puzzling case do seem to come together when we consider the possibility that there is a hidden assailant inside the apartment on that fateful evening. Ellen, making a fruit salad, was caught off guard and subjected to a shocking attack that ultimately took her life. The scenario of an intruder inside the apartment fits the evidence better than the theory of Ellen being the one to take her own life. Also, the fact that Ellen's body was moved multiple times suggests a deliberate attempt to manipulate the scene, making it appear as if she took her own life. This raises a perplexing question. How did Sam initially find her on the floor, while the police later discovered her in a sitting position against the kitchen cabinet? The details of this case certainly leave room for doubt and further investigation. We can only hope that, in time, the truth about Ellen's tragic death will come to light and the responsible party will be brought to justice, allowing her soul to rest in peace. On June 15th, 2023, just 3 days before Father's Day, a horrifying crime occurred in the peaceful village of New Richmond, Ohio. It left the community in disbelief and sorrow. The incident was so disturbing that the prosecuting attorney asked for the highest bond amount ever seen in the county.
We're going to ask this court to issue a bond we've never asked for before. I'm going to ask for a bond of $20 million. I hope I never need to request such a bond again.
This incident left everyone involved with the question, what could be the motive behind this unthinkable act? Today, we'll take a look into the disturbing case of the Doerman family. On a Thursday, June 15th, 2023, the weather in New Richmond was cloudy and it was around 75 degrees outside. Everything seemed normal, like a typical suburban American day. But this day turned out to be anything but ordinary. In the late afternoon, people noticed a teenage girl running down the road with a look of fear on her face. She was crying out for help, and her cries were filled with desperation. Her main goal was to reach the safety of a nearby firehouse where she could get help for something unimaginable that had happened to her. At exactly 4:18 p.m., a woman driving along Laura Lindale Road saw this teenage girl running with fear and heard her shouting, "My stepfather is killing everyone." Out of concern, she immediately stopped her car and talked to the girl to understand what was happening. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the woman quickly called 911 to get help for the girl and anyone else who might be in danger.
There's a girl running down the street saying that her stepfather is killing everyone in her family.
And what did the female say to you?
And she says that her stepfather is killing everybody in her house. I did. I'm on the phone with them right now.
Did she say how or what was happening?
I asked her to get in the car with me, and she said she couldn't leave her family.
Deputies received a distressing message through their radio dispatch. They were informed that a man had started shooting, and his own children were the targets of his violent actions. To understand the full story of what happened to this teenage girl and the terrifying events that unfolded, we need to start from the beginning and delve into the details of the situation. In the village of New Richmond, there is a house located along the 1900 block of Laura Lindale Road. This house was home to the Doerman family, which consisted of Chad Christopher Doerman, who was 32 years old, who lived there with his 34-year-old wife, Laura Doerman. Together, they had 3 young sons named Clayton, 7 years old, Hunter, 4 years old, and Chase, 3 years old. Laura also had a teenage daughter named Alexis from a previous relationship who lived with them. The Doerman children were full of lively energy and were very close to each other. They loved spending time with their cherished dogs, playing baseball, and supporting one another through all kinds of situations. However, their story took a darker turn on June 15, 2023, when Chad Doerman came home from work earlier than usual. He asked his wife, Laura, and their 3 sons to join him in the master bedroom for a nap. At that time, their daughter Alexis was in the family room watching television. Everything seemed normal and according to routine. After lying down with his wife and 3 sons, Chad got out of bed and went towards the gun safe next to his bed. Inside the safe was a Marlin Model HC-22 rifle. He took the rifle out of the safe and loaded it with a magazine containing bullets. Shockingly, he then shot 4-year-old Hunter twice. When the mother, Laura, heard the sound of the gunshots, she woke up and rushed to help her injured son. She immediately started providing aid to him and yelled at her other sons to run to safety. The situation was incredibly alarming and distressing for the family, as Chad's actions were completely unexpected and violent. At that moment, the sister, Alexis, heard the gunshots and quickly went to the master bedroom. When she arrived, she saw Chad holding the rifle, looking furious. Alexis was frightened, but she didn't let fear stop her, and despite the dangerous situation, she bravely attempted to save her siblings. She ran after Clayton to the back of the house, telling him to keep running to safety. But Chad followed them and continued shooting at the boy while he was running out into the backyard. The boy got hit by the bullets and fell down. Chad then came closer and shot him again from a very close distance. After Alexis ran back to the house, she grabbed her other brother Chase and ran away while holding him. As they got close to the road, Chad caught up with them and pointed the rifle at them, telling her to let go of her brother. Chad tried to fire at them, but the rifle didn't fire because it was empty, with no ammunition left. After the 3rd son escaped, he ran to his mother, who had gone outside to help Clayton, who was shot earlier. Meanwhile, Alexis started running toward the nearby Monroe Township Fire Department for help. She told a passerby who stopped to help her that her father was killing everyone as she fled. While they're at the house, Chad approached the 3rd boy and Laura. He bit Laura while trying to take her son from her arms. In the struggle, Laura managed to grab the rifle, but Chad shot her through her thumb. Unfortunately, during the chaos, Laura dropped her son, and Chad shot the son in the head. After this horrific act, Chad sat on the side stoop of the house, watching as Laura desperately tried to save her children's lives. It seemed like he wanted to cause her even more pain. The police soon arrived at the crime scene after receiving multiple 911 calls from neighbors and people driving by.
Where's he at?
He said, shooter's on the porch.
Get him right here, right here. You got him on the porch.
We've
right here.
asked, that's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We got a visual in the veil. Not showing his hands and not following commands.
Stand up now!
Still not showing hands or following commands. His name is Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman.
I know, but
we gotta go.
I know, but we can't.
If people need first aid and he's not complying, and you know he's a shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see him. Don't take cover behind her. We see him. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6 covered, 29 and 63 is type out.
We're not okay right now.
Show us your hands now. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up now. Stand up. Stand the up.
EMS to stage and air clear is going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands out of here.
72.
Cover 21. Send the air.
If those guys can confirm that there's people that need first aid and that's the shooter who's not complying, they need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. If they have to shoot in the shootout.
Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. I'm completely sober. Never did drugs a day
63,
in my
we're
life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs with a flip, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 feet up.
Gatlin.
63, we're 21. Have EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, just started mass casualty response.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
Hey, are you copying all this?
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it.
Chad was behaving strangely after he committed the terrible act of killing his 3 sons. He kept saying things like, "I won't do anything, I'm sober," which indicated that he was aware of what he'd done and what was happening around him. Surprisingly, he remained calm and showed no emotions, despite the fact that he'd just taken the lives of his own children moments ago. When the police arrived, Chad didn't resist or try to escape. Instead, he cooperated and allowed them to arrest him without any trouble. He even informed the police about his dogs and showed concern for their safety, which was unexpected considering his impulsive and terrible act. Chad's behavior raised many questions about his state of mind and motives. Police quickly arrested Chad and took him to Claremont Police Station for questioning. After making sure the area was safe, more deputies carefully checked the surroundings. It was incredibly sad to find 3 young victims who had been shot. They were in critical condition and unresponsive. The boy's mother, Laura, was also found outside the house with a gunshot wound to her hand, which she had bravely endured trying to protect her children. Recognizing the urgent need for help, they quickly provided medical aid to the mother and rushed her to a nearby hospital for treatment. Sadly, by the time the police arrived, all 3 boys had already passed away. During the investigation that followed, detectives discovered that Chad had allegedly first killed 4-year-old Hunter by shooting him twice inside the house. After that, 7-year-old Clayton had tried to escape and ran into the field behind the house, but Chad chased him and shot him from behind. To be sure Clayton was dead, Chad fired 2 more rounds. Finally, Chad took 3-year-old Chase from his mother's arms and killed him as well. The entire community was shocked and saddened by this horrific incident.
I'm shocked, to be honest with you. We moved here 6 years ago, and the place is great, and you know, New Richmond's coming up, and you just hate to see anything like this anywhere.
All of a sudden I hear boom, boom, and at like 5 more, I'm like, that's 7 shots. That's shots, like there's no way. So I was freaking out like this before I got ready and everything, and I don't know, man. Before that I saw 2 cars right here on this street zoom as fast as humanly possible. It was like something's going down.
When Chad was brought in for questioning, he made shocking statements to the law enforcement officers. He said things like, "I did it, take me to jail," and "I shouldn't have shot Laura and my sons." During an audio and video recorded interview, Chad revealed something even more disturbing. He'd been thinking about shooting his son since October 2022 for almost 8 months. He admitted that the thoughts of killing his own children were weighing so heavily on him that he hadn't slept for 3 or 4 days before the murders. It's hard to imagine what could drive someone to do such a terrible thing. Chad faced serious charges of 3 counts of aggravated murder after admitting to shooting his 3 sons with a rifle. After detectives interviewed him, he was then taken to the Claremont County Jail, where he was held without bond. The next day, on June 16, 2023, he appeared in the Claremont County Municipal Court for a hearing to decide whether he'd be granted bond or not. The court took this case very seriously due to the severity of the charges against him. 1 week after the shooting, a grand jury in Claremont County added more charges to Chad's case. In total, there were 21 charges against him, including 9 counts of aggravated murder, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 4 counts of felonious assault. The indictment stated that Chad had planned and thought about the murders beforehand, admitting to having planned them for several months. Chad pleaded not guilty to all the charges against him. His lawyer decided not to ask for bond, possibly because they knew it would be difficult to get him released. The judge, Victor Haddad, saying,
"At this point in time, bond's going to be set in the amount of $20 million cash or surety."
The county prosecutor, Mark Takulvi, made it clear that he intended to fully prosecute Chad for the crimes he was accused of.
First and foremost, I want to start out by expressing the deepest sympathy I have for his family on this unspeakable tragedy. I can't go into a whole lot of facts, all right, because this is a death penalty case, and my goal is to have this man executed for slaughtering these 3 little boys. It is, let me try to figure out a way to put this. It is an incomprehensible act of horror that he perpetrated on his family. So again, that is my most important focus right now, is to ensure that they're protected and they are safe. And my hope and wish and prayer is that someday we will be able to find peace. But factually, I've said what I said on the record, and I'm going to stick with that, right?
Why was it, with how complicated the death penalty is in Ohio right now, and how much extra work it adds to your office, why was it important for you to seek this?
I'll let the facts speak for themselves. He slaughtered his 3 children in the most brutal fashion you could imagine, as I mentioned in court. The extra work is no extra work at all. It's what we do. This merits our attention, our devotion, and our effort.
Thoughts on that initial not guilty plea?
That has to be done.
This means that Chad will remain in jail until his trial because he was not granted bail. Chad Doerman's next court appearance was scheduled for July 5, 2023 for a pretrial hearing, but no further details have been released by the police. After the tragic incident where Chad allegedly shot and killed his 3 sons, one big question remains unanswered. Why did he do it? As of now, the authorities have not been able to determine a clear motive for the killings. Chad's father, Keith Doerman, who's 51 years old, spoke with the New York Times and said that he and his wife Gloria are still struggling to understand how their son could have done such a terrible thing and murdered his own children. They said, "He just snapped. There's something going on in his life that he couldn't handle anymore. I can't talk to him. They aren't letting me talk to him, so I don't have any answers. He probably hid a lot of stuff from me." According to their neighbor, Richard Kincannon, Chad Doerman's behavior before the shooting was concerning. He described Chad as having a bad temper and constantly yelling at his wife and kids. Chad treated his wife poorly and seemed angry all the time. This indicates that from the beginning, he was not treating his family well and had a troubled relationship with them. Looking into Chad Doerman's background, investigators examined public records to find possible clues. They found that Chad had a minor criminal history, including a misdemeanor charge of criminal damage when he was 18, but that case was dismissed after restitution was paid. In 2010, he was charged with domestic violence for allegedly choking his father, but that case was also dismissed when the witness didn't show up in court. He also accumulated several traffic infractions and violations, mostly related to speeding. The police had been to his house twice since 2020, apart from the recent incident, but no details about those visits were provided. On the county auditor's website, they found that Chad bought his house, which was a converted manufactured home on 3 acres of land, for $75,000, and the family was up to date with property tax payments. In an important study, Dr. Philip Resnick, a well-known psychiatrist, conducted thorough research in 131 cases of parents killing their children. He published his findings in the American Journal of Psychiatry in 1968. Dr. Resnick identified 5 main reasons for this type of crime, which he called filicide. One reason is altruistic filicide, where a parent believes that their child is suffering too much in a cruel world, and they see killing the child as a way to end their suffering. Another reason is fatal maltreatment, which happens when a child dies due to abuse or neglect, even if it wasn't the parent's intention to kill them. Spousal revenge killings involve harming a partner by targeting and harming their children. Unwanted child killings are where the parent may kill the child because they didn't want them or feel burdened by their presence. Acutely psychotic killings are cases of severe mental illness where a parent may harm their child due to hallucinations or delusions. It became evident that Chad Doerman fit into the category known as family annihilators, joining the unfortunate list of parents who commit such heinous acts, but the motive behind it remains unknown. Rachel Brown, Laura's sister, started a fundraiser on GoFundMe to help with the costs of the funerals for Laura's 3 children. In her heartfelt message, Rachel expresses the immense pain and sadness of losing her sister's amazing kids. She acknowledged that nothing could ever make the situation better or okay, but she asked for people's generosity to help ease the financial burden that came with this tragic loss. Rachel believed that no one should have to go through such a heartbreaking experience, and she appealed to the kindness and empathy of others to support her family during this difficult time. On June 26, 2023, a special event called A Celebration of Life was held to honor and remember the 3 boys who tragically lost their lives. The community members gathered at the First Baptist Church of Glen Estey and wore bright colors as requested by the family to symbolize positivity and hope. Even though it was a sad occasion, people cherished the memories they had with the boys and showed their determination to stand by the family during these tough times. To raise funds and show support, a memorial was organized at a baseball field and T-shirts were sold. The daughter, Alexis, also expressed her wish to participate in a sports tournament in memory of her brothers, showcasing the strength of the family and the love and support they received from the community. May the memory of Clayton, Hunter, and Chase live on, and may this case serve as a reminder to cherish and protect the bonds of family and community. What are your thoughts on this case? What do you think could be the possible motive that made Chad Doerman kill his own sons? We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendations in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe. Shout out to these incredible true crime lovers. Your support truly keeps us going. To the rest of the Mysterious 7 family, if you want to get in on the action and get a shout out, join our Crime Police membership today.